South Jersey's play-by-play home for the Eagles,
Touchdown!
Sixers,
It's good!
and Flyers.
Oh, big save by Carter Hart.
97.3
Can you
ESPN,
mute your laptop? I think I'm getting
WENJ,
feedback on the
WENJ
reverb from
HD,
that.
Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station.
And of course, I have a YouTube ad. Damn it.
A good Thursday, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And, of course, if you're watching the show live on our video platforms, I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Henning is back in the Matt Blatt Kia Studios producing today's show. I am live on location today over at Chickies and Pete's in Atlantic City. It's a beautiful day down the shore. It's actually a little bit there's the music. I was wondering what happened to the Sports Bash lead-in music there. It's a very warm day. What is the warm weather forcing you to forget things over there?
I ran into a YouTube ad.
Oh, YouTube app. So you were really overly prepared.
Basically.
The YouTube ad means, hey, the show starts in 5 seconds and I need to and here comes an ad, so I can't run my music. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. So it's a hot day outside, man. I wore like a long sleeve today, and I got outside, and I'm walking through this casino, and I'm sweating my face off in this joint, man. It's like, holy moly. I'm not going to complain about the nice weather. I drove over here today wearing with the window down in my car. Went window down, arm out the window. I'm a big window down guy whenever I can.
I agree. I'm with you on that. Anytime I get the fresh air, I'm all for it.
Yeah. So we got a lot going on. Cowboys tonight and the Saints. We'll talk a little bit about the NFC East race because it is a race. This is a big game tonight for the NFC East fans out there. We talked a lot about the, kind of state of a lot of things yesterday. And, the Cowboys who are expected to get Amari Cooper back tonight. He's missed 2 games because he's a bonehead, essentially. And he should be back tonight. And they play the Saints, who are making a quarterback change. So we'll dive into that game because it does have impact on Washington, New York, and Philadelphia. Of course, Philadelphia taking on the Jets this week. The Giants and the Washington football team are kind of back in this race. The Washington football team's not back in the race. They're leading the race. The Washington football team right now is the number 7 seed in the National Football Conference standings. Who would have thought? When they played their game on Monday Night Football, they were the 12 seed. And by the end of the night, they went from 12 to 7. So all these people who always talk about, oh, you got to jump over all these teams. You need too much to happen. Playoffs. Are you kidding me? If you think the Washington football team is a significant step up over Philadelphia right now, then you're obviously not watching a lot of football. Every one of those teams, I'm not writing off anybody at this stage. You know why? Because one team is worse than the next. Nobody's better than the other. They are all incrementally poor. They are all just this. It is this parity mess that the NFL wants. This is exactly what they want. They want a parity mess. Look, would you be surprised, Josh, if the Saints, they're starting Taysom Hill tonight. Yep. He's 3-1 as a starter. He will make his first start of the season tonight at quarterback. Will you be surprised if the Saints, who are 5-6, won the game tonight?
I wouldn't be surprised for 2 reasons. One, because they're basically going to run the triple option offense half the game. And you know how defenses have trouble with that. I've never seen it before. And 2, the Cowboys are going to be a shoulder shrug because the guy in charge is going to be Dan Quinn, and he has a horrible record against Sean Payton.
Right, and here's a couple of things. Now, the Saints, no Kamara, their 2 offensive tackles are still out. The 2 guys who did not play against the Eagles, they are both out in this game as well. So they are a little shorthanded on the offensive line. No Kamara, that hurts too. But adding Hill to the mix is definitely a different look for this team. And you think about, what the Cowboys want to do defensively. They play a lot of man personnel. And when you do that, that gives the opportunity for Taysom Hill to kind of, break free and run off. When you're going down the field and in coverage, adding Hill to the mix. I don't know why they went with Simeon at all.
Well, they had to go with Simeon for at least a week or two because Hill was injured. So at one point they were stuck with him. But when Hill got healthy, there should have been no reason why Simeon had to be out there.
Right. You remember when Hill started games last year, and I think even the year before, where they needed they went like 4-0 with games. Was it last year, I guess? They went 4-0 in games without Drew Brees, and we all thought, man, when the season, we thought they were going to go to Winston last year. They ended up going to Hill. The only game Hill lost was that game to the Eagles.
Right. And people forget that part of the reason why they had success with Hill was because the offense was basically one of those, you know what we're doing, we know what we're doing, stop it if you can, and teams just couldn't stop it.
Well, here's the thing. The defense that teams are playing right now, a lot of teams are playing cover 2. They don't want to get beat over the top. They don't want the big play. And that was in vogue. The Tampa 2 was in vogue, back when Tony Dungy was coaching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And a lot of teams, you started to see them run the Wildcat because the safeties are so far off the ball. There's a lot of man coverage on the outside. And you saw a guy like Ronnie Brown run the Wildcat with the Miami Dolphins, and they did a really good job. The difference was they didn't have a guy who could throw. Taysom Hill can actually throw the football. I mean, Correct. He is a quarterback who is masquerading as a wide receiver and a running back at this time. So he really adds a dimension. So if you're a team like the Saints tonight, and look, if the Saints win this game tonight, they are 6-6 and very much involved. In fact, if they get to 6-6, I don't have the standings up in front of me, but they might even be ahead of Washington. What's Washington's record?
Pulling up right now, but I know Washington is 2 games behind the Cowboys in the division.
Right. Is
Washington's 5-6.
I'll say Washington's 5-6, and they are currently the playoff team. So if the Saints win tonight and get to 6-6, they would move a half game up over Washington. So by the end of the night, the Saints are in what place currently?
Saints are currently 10th.
So they are the 10th seed.
But this should be noted, they had the same record as the aforementioned Washington, Minnesota, and Atlanta. So they would be 6-6 while all the other teams are waiting to still play this weekend.
Right. So they essentially would be a half game up on all those teams because they play tonight. So this is a huge game for the Saints with a chance to win the game and at the end of the day be the 7 seed. Now, things could happen on Sunday that might pigeonhole them out of that spot. But hey, if they win this game, they're 6-6, and the worst they could be is tied with teams for the 7th spot tonight. So a massive game for the Saints. And by the way, for this Cowboys team who's lost 3 out of 4, they're hoping to get their guys back. Cooper had to miss 2 games essentially because he was not vaccinated, right? I mean, he missed 2 games because he did not get the shot, not because he was injured, not for any other reason, is he decided he didn't want to get the shot.
Well, he did test positive. And when you test positive, the return rules are more strict than if you have the shot. So, but they say
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, though. But because he did not get the shot, the rules for him to come back were a lot more stringent.
Right.
Which forced him now to miss 2 weeks of games. All these Cowboy fans are complaining, oh, we're missing a lot of guys. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers don't have Antonio Brown. He's not playing. You don't hear the Buccaneers fans talking about, hey, our best receiver's not playing, right? That's the consequences of a football season. You lose guys. So they're going to play tonight. It looks like Cooper's going to be back. I would expect – now, this game is in New Orleans.
Yes.
So I would expect the Cowboys to be a road favorite in this game. We'll look at the schedule and all the lines tonight at 5 o'clock, but I would imagine that the Cowboys are a favorite in this game. They played last Thursday, so they have a little bit of an advantage in this game. Wait, did the Saints have a bye last week?
Double checking.
Trying to think back as to whether or not the Saints – I think the Saints actually had a bye last week. I think the last time they played was against Philly.
Just double checking here, trying to get the thing up in front of me. They had a. So the last
they played on Thursday night.
They played on Thursday night.
Right, they played on Thursday night and got beat by the Bills.
And the Cowboys have the same amount of time off.
Yeah, that's what I was. So neither team has an advantage here. Is my point. Both of them. I thought maybe that the Saints played on Sunday and had the short week against.
No, they both played Thursday.
But they both played on Thursday night. Now that game against the Bills, the the Saints looked dreadful on Sunday
That was
night.
a beatdown.
Yeah, they looked, and they were at home. It looked like a team that is just can't find an identity, don't know who they are. They lose that game, and then they decide, all right, it's time to do something. They change the quarterback. I'm wondering if tonight that quarterback change could reignite this team that, Josh, 3 weeks ago, they beat who? Tampa Bay.
4 weeks ago.
And then, 4 weeks ago, they beat Tampa Bay, and then followed that up with another win.
Now, right now, they've lost 4 straight since the Tampa win.
Jeez.
So they lost to Atlanta.
Who they played the
to
week?
Tennessee.
Did they win the week before Tampa Bay?
Yes.
Okay. So they won the game, and then they beat Tampa Bay, and they were within, right there. They were like a game behind Tampa Bay after that win. And, it looked like the Saints were a team that were finding themselves
with Jameis
Winston, and then he got hurt. But we thought, okay, why is this Saints team pretty good? They run the ball, and they play really good defense. They had the number 1 rush defense in the league, and they have, since the Eagles game, have just fallen apart defensively, man.
Yep.
They got gashed by the Eagles, and they got lambasted by Buffalo the other night.
And don't forget, Mike, this is a Saints team that coming into the year, we did have questions about it. It's not like they were a surefire thing.
Right. No, I don't think anybody thought this Saints team was, man, this is a foregone conclusion that the Saints were going to be in the playoffs. We had to find out about Jameis Winston. I think their wide receiving core with Michael Thomas out has really been shaky. Their offensive line has lost a couple guys along the way here, so that really murkied the waters as well. Then they lose Kamara. I mean, entering the year, we didn't think this was a real surefire playoff team. But then all of a sudden you pick up a win like the one you did against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're thinking, defensively, they're pretty good. Winston was the number 1 pick. Maybe Sean Payton's got something here, and then he ends up getting hurt, and now all of a sudden the defense is falling apart. So this is a big game for the Saints tonight. I think if the Saints lose tonight, we do which teams are we rooting for if you want the Eagles to make the playoffs. This is actually kind of a tough one, right? Because obviously you want Dallas to lose, but at the same time, if the Saints lose this game, you could almost say they're almost out of the mix as well, right? They would kind of fall behind. In fact, they would be tied with the Eagles, but have the same record as the Eagles. They would be tied with the Eagles, but the Eagles had beaten them head to head, so you would be ahead of them. But you're rooting for the Saints tonight. You want the Saints to win that game, even if it means they move a half a game ahead of you in the wild card standings, because you own the tiebreaker over them. Because you want to bring Dallas back to the pack. And then, if Dallas loses tonight, it kind of opens back up that NFC East possibility.
It does. The other thing is, don't forget, tonight is the first time, if everyone plays as projected, the Cowboys will have their entire offense together for the first time this year.
Well, they're not going to have Steele.
They're not going to have Steele, but what I'm talking about is the 3 wide receivers, Elliott, Pollard, Dak, and the offensive line.
Okay. Well, no excuses for the Cowboys, because I know from what I know from Cowboys fans is they like to find excuses from far and wide angles, man. They come from all angles finding excuses.
Mike,
there shouldn't be any tonight.
I was watching NFL Network this morning, Good Morning Football, and they kept saying on the show, everyone on the show, the Cowboys are supposed to and have to win this game. If they don't, that's a problem. And they were saying, look, no, Mike McCarthy is not an excuse at this point.
No, in fact, I would joke that not having Mike McCarthy is probably a good thing. The problem is you go to Dan Quinn, who's not very highly regarded as a head coach either.
Right.
But look, you reap what you sow with some of these things. But they are a healthy team tonight. They're back. Their offense is back. Now, defensively, they're missing a couple of guys. But look, you're facing a Saints team that is decimated by. This is one of the Cowboys will say, well, we have so many injuries. You're playing a Saints team that's missing its 2 tackles and Alvin Kamara, for God's sakes. What more, if you're the Cowboys, could you ask for? Not to mention, the Saints are now on their 3rd quarterback of the season.
Also, don't forget the Cowboys are supposed to have DeMarcus Lawrence back tonight. They could have their best defensive player back tonight.
Yeah. Well, they're getting Lawrence back. They're starting to get their guys back. This is the run for them. This is when it's time for the Cowboys to quit with the excuses.
This is put up or shut up tonight.
Right? You're playing against a team that's just beaten up and has been everybody's punching bag the last, 4 weeks in a row now. This Saints team has lost 4 weeks in a row. Now, you're playing at New Orleans, which all of a sudden has not been quite as difficult. You're playing against a team that whatever happened to them defensively, they had the number one rush defense in the league. That has kind of gone out the window the last 2 weeks, especially in the game against Philly. So it'll be interesting tonight. But I do think that adding Taysom Hill to this mix adds a very high level of intrigue to what the game will look like tonight. If Simeon's playing, I'm not interested. With Hill playing quarterback, I think that adds a huge layer to this mix.
Is this the most anticipated Thursday night game for you this season?
You'd have to give me the Thursday night schedule. But, I mean, the Saints aren't like – it's just – I would say this. Because of the fact that Dallas is in the East, Saints are in the playoff race, when this game occurs, it definitely adds a layer. Was there a Thursday night game somewhere back there? Didn't the Buccaneers play someone pretty good?
Well, the Bucs. So here's your Thursday night games this year. I'll run them down for you real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So week 2 was Washington.
Well, the first one of the year doesn't count. You had Buccaneers, Cowboys.
Right.
That's not the one I'm talking about.
Okay. Well, then you had Washington, New York, Giants.
Uh-huh.
Then you had Texans, Panthers.
Out.
Then you had Bengals, Jags.
Nope.
Seahawks, Rams.
Nope.
Eagles, Bucks.
That was an awful game.
Browns, Broncos, which was also an awful game. Cardinals, Packers, which was interesting.
That was the best one of the year.
Then you had Colts, Jets.
Right, awful.
Dolphins, Ravens, which was
Not
ugly
good.
as anything.
Not good.
Falcons, Patriots, which the Patriots just punched them in the face constantly.
Yeah, that was terrible.
And then, of course, last week, the Saints-Bills was technically the Thursday night game.
No, the best one was the Cardinals-Packers game was the best two teams. I mean, you had the two top teams in the NFC playing against each other on Thursday night. So that was the best one. But this is the one that, to me, has the most interest in it because you have two teams that directly affect what's going on here. The NFC East race, if Dallas loses, they fall to 7-5, and then it's just a 2-game separation for Philadelphia. And it's only would be a half a game or a game and a half separation for Washington. So the NFC East, and keep in mind, Washington and Dallas play twice.
Yes.
They have 2 games still to come. So if Dallas loses tonight, they're a game and a half above Washington with 2 matchups with them to go. And they would be 2 games ahead of Philadelphia with a matchup with Philadelphia still to go. And keep in mind, Philadelphia plays on Sunday against the Jets, which if they won that game, they would be within a game and a half of the Dallas Cowboys. So it's a big game in the NFC East for that side. And then, of course, on the wild card side of things, if the Saints win tonight, they would then, I believe, now I don't have the standings up in front of me, but just going off of memory, if the Saints win tonight, they would be the 7th seed. And if they lose tonight, they would move from the 10th seed below Philadelphia, so they would probably fall to the 12th seed in the NFC standings.
And don't forget, Mike, the Eagles also got to play Washington twice.
Right. Philly plays Washington twice. And that game, the Eagles, remember, have a bye next week. So that's why there's a half a game kind of involved in this situation because they are still ahead of everybody else. So they have a bye next week, and Washington will be the next team on the schedule after that. So they will play the Jets this week, a bye, and then Washington, right? And then they have the Giants again, then Washington again, and then Dallas. So this game tonight is really the kickoff of what could be a wild few weeks in not only the NFC East standings, but as we already know, it is going to be, I don't want to say a sprint to the finish line. You ever see the movie Revenge of the Nerds?
Sure.
And in Revenge of the Nerds, where they have the race at the end, and every time they do a lap, they have to do a shot. This is what the race is going to look like in the NFC for the 6th and 7th seeds. You're going to have all of the fraternity guys doing a lap, taking a shot, and then getting on the tricycle and just kind of falling their way around to try to get to that number 6 and 7 spot. And I don't think any of the nerds are giving any team in this race one of those potions to make them not have the effects of alcohol. because I think all of these guys are on the tricycle right now, just wobbling around the track. And whoever comes across the finish line is probably going to be wasted at the end of this race.
Oh, my goodness. That's a wonderful analogy, Mike.
Thank
That's
you.
a wonderful analogy.
Like I don't know how that one just popped into my head.
I don't know either, but it was so good.
Revenge of the Nerds. What's the guy's name? What was the guy's name who was the nerd who was riding the tricycle? Anybody out there remember the name of the gentleman who was riding the tricycle, and they gave him they gave him whatever potion or whatever that he would take a shot of so that he wouldn't feel the effects of the alcohol as much. I mean, he still got drunk.
Was it Takashi?
Takashi, yes. Takashi was riding the tricycle around the track. And then by the end, they're like, how you feel? He's like, I feel effing great. He was all wasted riding around the track. That's what the NFC playoff race is right now. The NFC playoff race is the Revenge of the Nerds race at the end. And all of the frat guys are wasted, and they're just falling off the tricycles. Ogre is in the lead, and he just can't stay up any longer. I don't think Ogre was actually riding the tricycle. I think they had a different guy from it wasn't the Tri-Lambs. The Nerds were the Tri-Lambs.
Right.
And then they were dating the Omega Moose. You remember the Moose? Oh, Booger was like, oh, no, not the Moose. And all the girls came in. They were like 6'2", and Booger is at like breast height of all of the women that came in the room. And he's like, oh, this isn't so bad. What a great flick. They don't make them like that anymore, man.
Yeah, that was like, what, 84?
I don't know, but they're making these movies with like all this crazy super animation. You got Revenge of the Nerds and Wonder Joints. Takashi driving around on a tricycle. I mean, that's when making a movie was big time right there. Jeez. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. You're playing my music. You tell me I need to get out of this segment?
I just think it's time to go to break.
Sports Bash is live on location, Chickies and Pete's. Now, I got 4 people sitting at the bar in front of me right now, and they got some sort of food over there that I don't know that I've seen before, ordered here. I'm really intrigued. All right, we're live. I want to get into some college football because, Josh, I have something that I think you're going to be surprised by, college football related.
All right.
Okay, we got that. I got my thoughts on what the Phillies are doing. There's a lockout in baseball, which means no more Phillies moves, no more baseball moves. And quite frankly, I go to spring training every year. There might not be any games when I go to spring training this year. We got that, and the Sixers lost last night. I want to get into that because I told you about Embiid. That was my thought of the night last night, and that didn't go very well. So we got all that, Eagles, Jets, football at 4, busy day, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. All right, we're live, Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And, of course, you can download the app in the Apple Store, Google Play. You can message us through the app. It's an easy way to get involved in the show. Brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan. The all-new Matt Blatt Nissan, now open Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, next to Home Depot, online, mattblattnissan.com. Let me open up the text board and see what you guys are saying out there. 609-403-0973. Mike, thanks for spoiling the ending of Revenge of the Nerds. That's Cole from LBI. Now, what year was that movie, Josh?
I double-checked it. It was 1984.
1984. I think the statute of limitations of me breaking the news of the ending of that movie has surpassed, Cole.
I think
You're a fine listener. You're a great text message engagement interactor. But the movie was in 1984. I think I am well within the boundaries of giving away the ending of that movie. Which, by the way, I didn't even give away the ending of the movie. I didn't tell you what happened in the movie. I just told you a scene that happened in the movie. That Tekashi and the Nerds were doing the race, and all I said was Tekashi won the race. That didn't give away the ending of the movie.
There is more to the movie than that.
Yeah,
scene.
That's not even the final. So they do these Olympic games, and the Tri-Lambs have to beat the I don't know the name.
I think it was the Alpha Betas.
The Alpha Betas. That's right. Ooh, ah, Alpha Beta.
Betas.
Oof, ah, and they're like all the football players. So the Nerds have to beat the Alpha Betas to get their house back, and they have all these events. And one of the events is this tricycle race,
right?
Where they had to take a shot on the way around the track.
Every time.
But there's another event after the tricycle race. So to call an LBI, I didn't give away who won all the events. I just told you what happened in that race is that the Nerds came up with something so that Tekashi didn't feel the effects of the alcohol as much as everybody else did. Right? How about the other event where Lamar Wormser came up with a way to throw the javelin, and the javelin was like this. It was like bouncing up and down, and Lamar just kind of flung it, and the thing's like flying through the air. Now Wormser, I remember, he was like the young kid. Who was and the other guy? The other guy had he was the guy that was playing the keyboard. He was dancing at the party, and he had excitement moment down there, and he split his pants.
Yeah, very excited.
What the hell was that guy's name? It's a great movie. I can't believe Cole didn't see it. He probably did. I think he was just kidding. But I don't think I spoiled the ending of that movie.
Nah, you're fine.
Right, all right. Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN, 609-403-0973. Mike, can you settle something for us? As we heard that Sean... What does that say? Can you read that text message? Is that supposed to be just like a joke or something? I'm sorry.
I have no idea what this text is.
Even if it's supposed to be a joke, I think they were speaking to text.
It definitely is talk to text.
And it didn't come out right. So if you want to tell your joke, you got to do it again. You got to speak to text a little different.
Try again.
Mike, I do believe the Birds still have a path, but it's definitely a wild card. Let's be real here. Dallas set themselves up good enough to win the division, clear the most talent, simply better all around. And they only have one NFC loss, the other three AFC losses. Well, to answer that text, let's break that text down a little bit here. One, yes, there's no question that Dallas has the most talent. I mean, that's not even arguable. It's not even debatable. The fact that the Eagles and the Washington football team are even within an arm's length is a sad testament to what the Cowboys season has become. They should be so far ahead in this division that it's not even funny. But alas, they're the Dallas Cowboys, and here they are playing a game on Thursday night that is a meaningful game to keep to keep the division separated.
Listen, they should not have lost to the Raiders on Thanksgiving. And the Denver game was honestly embarrassing.
Right. The Eagles went to Denver and waxed them.
Right. Denver went to Dallas and waxed them.
Right. There's no excuse. I don't care how many guys are hurt. I don't care what the situation is. There is no excuse for the Denver Broncos to come into your building and kick your ass like that. Period, point blank. Now, to go back to the text message, you're right. The Eagles have a path, and the best path is 90% the wild card. Not even a question that the Eagles' best path is probably the number 6 or number 7 seed. They are within a half a game of those two spots. The only reason they're actually still somewhat in the division race, and that's even 10% of their possibility, is because Dallas is ineptitude to separate themselves. So the text message, you're completely right. Dallas is the most talented team. They're the best team. They have set themselves up because they got off to such a good start, so much so that for 1 week I had them my Find Five as my number one team. So all of that into the equation comes into this. The Dallas Cowboys have been somewhat of a disappointment because of the fact that this still is a division race. I mean, if they lose tonight and Washington is able to win a football game this weekend and pull, does Washington play this weekend or do they have a bye? I don't see the schedule. When people tell me, when I do Thursday, first look at the schedule, I really don't look at the schedule. So I have no idea who they're playing this week.
Washington plays the Raiders.
Okay, Washington Raiders. There's a goodie. Like 1980s battle. Revenge of the Nerds was on top. The Washington football team and the Raiders were in Oakland. They were actually, I think the Raiders were in Los Angeles.
I think they were in Los Angeles at the time.
Right?
Yeah,
1984.
That was Plunkett era.
You had Revenge of the Nerds. The Washington football team was known as the Redskins, and the Las Vegas Raiders were in Oakland, and then before that they were in Los Angeles, and before that they were in Oakland again.
Right.
Got all that?
I do. I can't speak for anybody else.
No, I don't think Revenge of the Nerds was the number one movie at the time, though. I don't think it was a box office banger. Glenn from EHT on the text board. Taysom Hill is another version of Tim Tebow. He's a gadget play guy. Saints get smoked tonight. See, this is where I disagree with Glenn a little bit. Yes, he is a gadget guy, but as much as Tebow was a gadget player in the NFL, Hill is a significantly better passer than Tebow was.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, Tebow was so one-dimensional.
First of all, Tebow's windup was so long, you could go get a sandwich from the fridge and come back and you'd still be in a throwing motion.
Yeah, Hill's a much better, more capable passer than Tebow was. Now, Tebow, you can make an argument that Tebow was a better runner. I don't know about that.
I think Hill's a better runner.
I would say Hill's a
better athlete.
Hill's a more elusive runner. I think Tebow was a more punishing runner.
If Tebow would just put his head down and try to run people over.
Yeah, I can't agree 100% with what Glenn's saying there. I think your point is he's not a real quarterback. Now, he did play quarterback in college.
Yes, he did.
He was a good, and so did Tebow, by the way, but he was a more traditional quarterback than Tebow was in college.
Tebow literally just ran that triple option offense half time.
Fun and gun.
Yeah. It's
kind of pop gun, what the hell they called it.
I mean, Taysom Hill was actually passing in college. Like, he was actually putting the ball down the field. Yeah. Whereas Taysom Hill's last year in college, he threw for over 2,000 yards. It's not like he was just running the ball all the time like Tebow was.
Text board 609-403-0973. Mike, Revenge of the Nerds. Nerds in Paradise was the best. I never saw Nerds in Paradise.
I never saw that either, so I'm with you.
Mike, the guy that was playing the keyboard is Timothy Busfield. Now, is that the actor's name? That's not what his name was in the movie. What was the guy's name in the movie?
Let me pull it up here. So I don't remember all the names off the top of my head.
No, I got Wormser. I got Booger, Wormser.
I remember Takashi. That was the one that I remembered.
Yeah, but you looked that up.
Yeah, because I can't remember everything.
I know, but I'm saying you didn't know it. You had...
What was the guy's
name?
It was Timothy Bunsfield?
It was Poindexter.
Poindexter.
Yeah, Poindexter was the actor's name. Yeah, Timothy Busfield was Poindexter. You had Wormser. You had Lewis. Lewis was one of the nerds. He was so Poindexter was the guy with the keyboard. Wormser was the little guy who designed the oh man, I'm having like major senior moments in my life recently here, Josh. I don't know.
You need more sleep. That's why.
The javelin. He was the guy who designed the aerodynamic javelin. Now, Lewis was the main character. Lewis and his buddy Gilbert. They were the two, like, lead nerds. You had Lamar Luttrell. He says, Lamar Luttrell. No, he says Lamar Luttrell, and he says Luttrell Lamar, which was when they were checking into the gym, when they had to sleep in the gym for a little while. You had Booger, who was Dudley Dawson, and then you had Toshiro Takashi. There you go. That was to the guy who gave me Timothy Busfield. Thanks a lot, buddy. Like, Timothy Busfield had a wider range of roles that I missed on, that I would have got him from.
Right.
Yeah. Technically, you can't say that they were a spoiler well before the term spoiler alert was invented. I guess so. 1984, were they saying spoiler alert?
Not that I know of, but that was also before the internet, so maybe that's what they're trying to say.
Mike, I'm at Matt Blatt Kia looking for a car. Can I drop your name? Yeah, go for it. See what happens. I mean, what kind of question is that? Jeez. I mean, sure, you could try. What am I going to tell you? No? Sure, drop my name. What's the worst they can say? Who the hell are you talking about? I mean, if you ask the right person at Matt Blatt Kia, go to the owner. That's the person I would – if you want to drop my name to somebody, go to the owner, not a salesperson. I don't know any of the salespeople really, but actually I know a couple of the salespeople over there are pretty nice.
Well, it's like you say, if you drop the name to the right person,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, go over to Matt. Ask for Matt. Drop my name to him. That's all. That's the best advice I can give you. I don't know what you want me to tell you there. Hill is way faster than Tebow. Tebow isn't running people over in the NFL. No, Tebow wasn't running people over in the NFL, but he was punishing. Like, he would lower the shoulder on you. And this is like anything. Like, when Jordan Howard runs on you all day long, you have to bring him down, 10 to 15 times a game, and that's a pain in the ass for the defensive player, right?
Also, Tebow was a big boy. He wasn't some lean little guy.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He punished you. When he ran, he punished you. He lowered that shoulder, and he gave you the boom, man.
He made you feel it.
609-403-0973. Keep the text messages coming. If you're listening on the app, got some app messages coming in here as well. Poindexter had a violin, Bob in Egg Harbor City. Yeah, you're right. Poindexter did have the violin, because I remember him playing that violin, and he had the hair all messed up. You remember? He had the hair like parted down the one side, and it was like real wild on the other side of his head.
Yeah, it would stick up.
Yeah, Gilbert, I think, was playing the keyboard. The keyboard that was like strapped around his neck. He had like the stand-up keyboard. That was who played Gilbert? Of all of the actors in that movie, for the nerds anyway, it was Anthony Edwards was Gilbert. Got me?
I got you.
Yeah, you didn't say anything.
I was waiting for you to say something.
I did. I said Anthony Edwards played the role of Gilbert. He was the most famous. And then you had Ted McGinley. He played Stan Gable. Now, Ted McGinley was also, he had a couple of roles down the line there that was, pretty prominent, I guess.
I would say probably, if you go outside the nerds themselves, the most famous person in the movie was John Goodman, right?
Oh, John Goodman, good pull. Yeah, he wasn't as prominent in this movie, nerds. He was the football coach, but he didn't have. Yeah. But Anthony Edwards as Gilbert, that was really his first role. There was a lot of you figure John Goodman was in that movie. Curtis Armstrong as Booger. He actually had a couple other roles. He had some other things. And Ted McGinley was in. Man, what the hell was Ted McGinley in? Pete Thompson's who I need for this kind of stuff.
Well, I was going to say, because I know Anthony Edwards. I was going to ask you, if you had to pick an Anthony Edwards role that's not Revenge of the Nerds, what do you identify him with?
ER.
Right, ER, right.
Which, you know what? I'm going to say something that's going to be crazy. I've never seen an episode of ER.
Wow.
But I know that Anthony Edwards was in ER.
All right, well, you still know that he's identified with that.
Yeah.
Wow, he was also in that show I told you about, Designated Survivor.
Yeah. Tony Skins is watching the show on YouTube. He says, Josh, just to be accurate, Taysom Hill threw for 23 yards his last year at TCU, and Tebow threw for almost 3,000 his senior year at Florida. Tebow also won a playoff game in the NFL with the Broncos. Tebow was definitely a better player than Hill in college.
Well, first of all, I went to BYU, not TCU, so you got to get the college right. You're going to correct me. Second of all, I said over 2,000
yards. Oh, that's a good
yards.
burn.
Second of all, didn't I not say over 2,000 yards in college?
I don't remember that, but I will say this. The Florida offense was certainly more high profile than Taysom Hill's offense at BYU.
I don't think anybody knows who was on Taysom Hill's offense at BYU.
No, but I think the point was, like, Tebow, I'm not a Tebow hater, by the way. Like, I feel like if you designed an offense for Tebow, you could have won. The Broncos proved that. The problem is, and by the way, the Ravens are proving that. If you design an offense for your quarterback's strengths, you can win with that guy. At that time, though, nobody wanted to commit to an offense that was centered around Tebow's strengths.
Correct.
So I'm not debating what Tony's saying. I was always on the Tebow thing of saying, look, if you design an offense for Tebow, you can win some games in this league. I mean, you're not going to throw a whole heck of a lot, but if you design an offense that is designed around his strengths and having him throw the ball 15 to 20 times a game, you probably could be a team that wins and goes to the playoffs and wins some games. I don't know if you're winning the Super Bowl like that, and I don't know how long that's sustainable. That's the problem.
By the way, a little statistical clarity. Tebow threw for over 3,000 yards once out of the 3 years he started. Taysom Hill's most yards he passed for the season were over 2,900.
All right, now the facts are really starting to come out.
So
the
now,
guy, Tony Skins, by the way, got the wrong college, and he's not giving accurate passing numbers. He sounds like he was drinking whatever those guys from the Alpha Betas were drinking.
Was he drinking with Tekashi? That's the question.
Yeah, go ahead, buddy. Drop my name over at Matt Platt Kia.
It's got to be a...
Sports Bash is brought to you by Deborah Heart and Lung Center. When it's your heart, you don't take chances. Be sure to demand Deborah.org. It's a nice lady that works over there. She sits right when you walk in to the left in the corner. Go tell her my name. She'll help you out. Can't remember her name. I actually have her name somewhere in my phone. I just can't think of it. I'm telling you, Josh, I'm having so many senior moments.
You need more sleep, man. I'm telling you.
I don't know. I think it's just I'm getting old. I'm forgetting things.
I mean, I could recommend some stuff for you, but I know you don't like taking anything.
Prevergen. So. Take that. Funny, I remember the name of that. I got a college football thought next. Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. The free mobile app. Don't go away. All right, we're back live at Chickies and Pete's here in Atlantic City, Tropicana. Beautiful day. Text messages rolling in today. 609-403-0973. Mike, Anthony Edwards was Goose in Top Gun before ER. That's accurate. Goose. Top Gun. I did see Top Gun, by the way. Did you see Top Gun?
I've seen Top Gun, but here's the problem. I can't keep track of what movies you have or haven't seen.
I couldn't hear you there.
Hold on, we got an issue with the mic over here. Let me fix this.
All right. Well, I saw Top Gun. I know Anthony Edwards. And by the way, Ted McGinley was in Happy Days. Had another text message on that. Also, Vito checks in watching the show on YouTube, who says that Booger was great in 80s movie with John Cusack, Better Off Dead. Yeah, that's the classic Better Off Dead. I want my $2. You know, he's riding around. I want my $2.
Can you hear me now, Mike?
I do.
All right.
Did you ever see Better Off Dead?
I have not seen Better Off Dead.
Really?
Nope.
It's a great 80s movie. John Cusack, man.
I feel like John Cusack, though, was in like every movie for like
He
a
was, in the
15-year
80s.
period.
You don't know the line, though, from Better Off Dead? I want my $2. The paper boy.
I've seen that line used in memes and GIFs.
Yeah.
So now I know where it's from.
He said Anthony Edwards was Goose in Top Gun.
Yes, that's correct. I have seen Top Gun.
Yeah. By the way, Ted McGinley also was the neighbor on Married with Children.
Now, that's a good pull.
That's a good pull. He was the neighbor. It was Marcy's husband. Now, Marcy was the wife. I don't know how that name pops right to my head, but I can't remember his name in. Why do I remember Marcy's name?
I have no idea.
I haven't seen. And by the way, I couldn't tell you Peg and Al and who were the kids,
Oh, my goodness. I can't remember the kids' names.
right?
I see their faces, but I can't remember
I
their
know
names.
Christina Applegate was the
Right.
daughter.
But I don't remember the actor, like the character's name. I remember
No,
the
I
actress.
can't think of the daughter's name or the son's name, but I could pick them both. I know it's Christina Applegate. I could pick the son out of a lineup. David Borenz or something like that was his name. This is a rare instance where I know the actor name and not the name of their character.
This is like an inverted situation here.
But Ted was the next door neighbor, and Marcy was his wife.
See, now I'm going to look up who's who here because Kelly.
By the way,
Kelly
Bundy, yes.
Yes.
And what was the first letter of the son's name?
The first letter.
Yeah. If you give me the letter, I'll get it.
B.
Bud.
Yes.
Bud Bundy. Yep. See?
David Faustino, by the way.
David Foster. What did I say? David Berenz.
Yes,
Who's
David
that?
Boreas.
Who's that? The guy from X-Files?
No, that's no. Dave Bernaz was the guy on. He was Angel on Buffy, and he later became the guy on the show Bones.
I didn't see any of those. By the way, I was corrected by Glenn. Bridgewater was the quarterback for the Saints when Breeze missed time last year. Not Hill.
Well, Taysom Hill is still
When did
3-1 as a
Hill's
starter.
3-1 as a starter. He's right about Bridgewater. I'm saying it was the year before, I think, when Hill got hurt. Breeze got hurt the year before, I think, and Hill had to play a couple games. I might have my years mixed up, but Hill had to replace him a couple of years ago, and they won games. I think. They
The
were
stat is
3-1.
still 3-1 as a
He's
starter.
definitely 3-1 as a starter. That I know. I know he lost to the Eagles in that game last year. Steve, Kelly, Bud. Oh, Steve and Marcy. Yes. That's from Tim in Millville. This Revenge of the Nerds movie really took us down a weird path. All right. I will give my college football thought coming up next. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN on location today. Chickies and Pete's, Tropicana, Atlantic City. Thursday night, Dallas, and the Saints. We'll have that for you live on 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's home for the NFL. I want to get into some Sixers stuff a little bit later. They lost last night in Boston. I did have a college football thought, and I want to get your take on this, Josh, because you're the resident college football guy around here. I'll give you that title. I would say that you would be the resident college football and UFCsman. How's that?
I like it. I
What
also
else?
like the fact that you kept the name UFCsman from a previous friend of ours.
Yeah, of course. You would be the those two. I think that they would be the two sports that you would be most known for above the other ones.
And I would say you would be known for WVU and for basketball.
WVU. Well, I think of the staff, yes, I would be the WVU guy. I think if I'm betting a game this weekend, I like Iowa, and I'm starting to feel that Iowa might win the game.
Okay, interesting.
Because
Elaborate.
we're talking about college football chaos yesterday.
Right.
And I was thinking about, okay, what would cause the most chaotic situation that's realistic? Now, Alabama losing is realistic. Does that cause a chaotic situation? Like, if you're ranking the chaos, what loss causes the most chaos? Is it Alabama's loss or if Michigan lost?
Definitely
Which is more
Michigan.
chaotic?
It's definitely Michigan number one. And the number two loss.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Because if Michigan loses, don't they have a little bit of a cushion to fall from 2 to maybe 4?
But the problem is then they would have two losses on the year. And the committee does not like those two losses on that side.
Are you dead set on if Alabama loses, they're out?
Yes.
Huh.
But I think the two losses from Michigan are worse than Alabama's two losses.
Well, I think Alabama, of all the teams, could overcome the two losses because of losing to Georgia.
The one thing with the Michigan losing is what it does also is it creates a vacuum, because let's say Michigan loses and Alabama lose.
Michigan loses and Alabama. Well, if Michigan and Alabama loses, you're going to see chaos because you're going to see Cincinnati most likely move up to number 2.
Which wouldn't be the worst case
That
scenario
is
for the
assuming Cincinnati wins.
right.
Because if Cincinnati loses, that's not chaotic. They're just out.
No, right. They're just out. That's the least chaotic outcome.
All right. So if Michigan loses to Iowa, now here's the thing. If you really think about this, Michigan beat Ohio State last week. The game's at Michigan. It's snowing, and it's just like the perfect storm for them. This game is, correct me if I'm wrong, this game's indoors in Indianapolis.
That is correct.
All right, so you have a neutral site situation, and you have an indoor game. This has major letdown written all over it. We finally beat Ohio State. We are the talk of the college football world. We finally have done this. And then what happens? You come crashing down and lose to freaking Iowa. And how many times has Iowa been a team that seemingly ruined somebody's season?
I feel like it happens all the time.
I feel like Iowa always beats somebody and you're like, oh my gosh, you lost to Iowa. Like, doesn't this game, it's the whole crashing nature of you haven't beat Ohio State, what was it, 10 years?
Yeah. If you hadn't beat the last time Michigan beat Ohio State, the quarterback was Denard Robinson.
Okay, so you haven't beaten Ohio State in all this time. You finally do it. You're at home, big house, snow. You couldn't ask for a better situation.
Right.
And doesn't this feel like letdown city?
It absolutely does. And don't forget about the fact that, like you said, listen, Iowa has a history of pulling this off. So you have to think that if any team, like, for example, you know me, I do my feature bet of the week every week. And people kept telling you, there's all these podcasts and all these shows I consume, and everyone's saying, you got to take Michigan. And I just kept thinking, I don't have to take anything. I don't trust Michigan. I trust that they can finally beat Ohio State. But now they're the number 2 seed. They're in the biggest game after the game of the season. This feels like a game where Iowa is going to be down by 3 with 2 minutes left in the game.
A lot of times, having that extra championship game helps a team. This is a situation where it might hurt a team.
Absolutely.
Because Michigan has won the bigger game already. They have won the biggest game on their schedule and now have to play another game.
Right.
11.5, I think the number is.
It opened at 10. The last thing I saw was 10.5. I double check what the number is right now.
Ooh, man. So that's my first thought on the college football. So the chaos would begin if Michigan loses the game. You then have a new number 2.
Right.
Does Cincinnati have enough oomph? Now, I think if they beat Houston, that's enough for them to move up from 3 to 2.
That would definitely, not arguably, that would definitely be their second best win on the year.
There's no question. The Notre Dame wins that's their calling card. They beat Notre Dame. That's their number 1 win.
Because people forget, Mike, real quick, people forget that Houston, after their week 1 loss to Texas Tech, they have been smoking hot since then.
Yeah, they've won every game. They've won 11 straight games.
But they haven't just won 11 straight. They're like blowing people out. They're just smoking people left and right.
So Cincinnati would move. If Michigan loses, Cincinnati would move to 2. I guess the question would be, if Alabama beat Georgia, would Alabama go from 4 back up to 2? Would they jump over Cincinnati?
I think so. I think that the Alabama, you could maybe even argue could be 1 in that scenario.
Oh, that's right. Because if they beat Georgia, you need a new number 1. Oh, right. I guess Michigan. If Michigan won and Alabama beat Georgia, would Michigan go from 2 to 1 and Bama go from 4 to 2?
I think Bama would go to, in that scenario, the ranking would be Michigan 1, Bama 2, Cincinnati 3, Georgia 4.
See, I think it would be Michigan 1, Bama 2, Georgia 3. I think Georgia would go to 3 and Cincinnati would get bounced back to 4.
Well, in that case, wouldn't that mean that Georgia and Alabama would play in the first round then?
Yep.
See, I'm trying to figure out what the committee wants more.
See, you're more fixated on this whole having. See, you're fixated on having this like first round matchup. I think it's the championship matchup is the one that they want. Not first round matchup. Yeah, I guess it's the first round. Whatever. They only have 4 teams.
Right. My point is that I don't think the committee wants certain matchups in the first round.
Look, you only have a couple of options here. There's only 4 teams.
Right. But what I'm saying is that if Alabama beat Georgia,
then Georgia's no longer number 1. If Michigan wins, they're number 1.
Right. So that way, if Georgia loses and Michigan was number 1, if you make Georgia the 4, then it's Georgia, Michigan in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
And then it could be Alabama, Cincinnati.
Yeah, because then that could set up a Georgia-Alabama final.
Correct.
Which I think this committee would love.
I think the committee wants that. I think they also want to see if Michigan makes the playoff. They want Michigan against the juiciest matchup.
See, this is where it's not. Here's what I would say. They should not convene in the same room to have this conversation because then these conversations could come out. Hey, we're all sitting in this room. Well, we want Michigan and so-and-so to play. Well, okay, then let's slant our votes to get that matchup. They should not know what everybody wants. It should just be, I don't know how, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how you do it fairly.
I mean, I don't know if there really is an answer to how you perfectly do it fairly, but let me ask you this other question.
Uh-huh.
Let's say Michigan does lose. Let's say you create the vacuum that you mentioned earlier. What if Oklahoma State then wins? They're currently number 5. They're just chilling there waiting for somebody to lose. Do you just plug them in?
Oklahoma State?
Yeah.
See, Oklahoma State does nothing for the TV viewer. That's one problem.
0.
Zippo.
They are the team you least want in there.
Cincinnati does a little bit, only because of the intrigue of, okay, who's this Cincinnati team? They're undefeated.
Right. Also, Mike, they've been talked about every week all year long.
Quite frankly, they've been talked about every week all year long for about 3 years. This Luke Fickell with this crew, they've been very good. Heck, they've been very good, you know. I don't want to say going back to Brian Kelly. They were very good with Brian Kelly. That was 10 years ago. But This is a good program, Cincinnati. But they've been on the national level, you know, it's interesting because Cincinnati is obviously a professional sports town.
Mm.
So they don't get the national college recognition because they're in a smaller conference, but they're also in a pro town.
Right, and also the fact they're not in a big conference either.
Well, that's what I said. They're not in a good conference, and they're in a pro
Well, you
town.
said not a good conference. I'm saying they're not in a legitimate conference at all, basically. Like, for example, the Big 12 is not a great conference, but they're still part of the Power 5.
Yeah, I mean, the American would be the next best conference, I guess, of the non-5. But
I guess.
Now, if this was next year, would this be a different conversation? If Cincinnati was in the Big 12?
I think it's 2 years from now, isn't
2
it?
years,
They
whatever
go to the
it
Big
is.
12?
I mean, that's an obvious answer because they'd be in the Big 12. They would have beaten, Baylor, Oklahoma. Well, Oklahoma's not even going to be there when they get there.
Right.
Jeez.
Oklahoma's leaving and Cincinnati is taking their place.
They're taking their place. The whole Cincinnati thing, like the Central Florida thing from a couple of years, like those couple of years where they were undefeated.
Right.
See, Michigan, oh man, if Michigan lost, that opens up the whole can of worms of who goes to number 2. Is it Cincinnati or if Alabama lost, you're needing almost, unless Michigan goes from 2 to 4.
I mean, I'm assuming that if Bama loses, that they're not even going to be in unless something else happens.
Like if Alabama loses by more than 3 touchdowns, they're out. If it's a 3-point loss, then I think they're in. That's on the text board.
But I think it depends on who else wins. Like if Michigan, let's say chalk happens. Let's say Oklahoma State, Georgia, Michigan, all 3 of them win, and Cincinnati. Let's say all 4 win. I don't see a scenario where Alabama is in only because of the fact that the committee is sitting there trying to tell everybody. They've been telling everybody for years now. The only thing they've been consistent on is we don't want a 2-loss team in.
So this guy said if Alabama loses, that's 3 losses. Do they have 2 losses right now?
No, they have 1 loss. They only lost to Texas A&M.
That's what I thought. I was trying to think. Did Alabama lose a second game that I missed?
No, this would be their second loss. They lose to Georgia. I would love to know who the other loss is because it's not on their schedule.
Yeah, they're 11-1.
They're 11-1. Their 1 loss was to Texas A&M.
Yeah, it's a bad loss.
Listen, they won last week, but they did in double overtime.
Yeah.
Still counts as a win.
All right. There's a lot there. By the way, Steve was Marcy's husband on the show, but that wasn't Ted McGinley's character. His name was Jefferson on the show, I believe. Now we're all over the place with Ted McGinley. He was in Married with Children. He was Marcy's husband, but his name wasn't Steve. It was Jefferson, I guess, apparently.
I feel like we're doing like three degrees of Kevin Bacon here.
Jeez. So the scenarios this weekend are such. Michigan plays Iowa.
Yep.
Cincinnati plays Houston. And Alabama plays Georgia. So all of the teams that are in the college football top 4 spots, they all play this weekend.
That's correct.
Oklahoma State plays Baylor.
And they're right on the outside looking in.
They're number 5. The only team that does not play is Notre Dame. They are number 6. So my question is, does anybody after number 6 have a shot in your mind?
Wow.
Can 7, 8, any of them prosper? I mean, you would think no, but my question, I guess, do any of them play?
I mean,
do any of them play that could get a significant enough win?
The only one is Baylor.
Notre Dame doesn't play.
The only one is Baylor.
Where's Baylor?
Baylor's, I think, 9.
So if Baylor beats Oklahoma State, number 5, does that have enough oomph if Michigan, Cincinnati, and Alabama lost to get in?
And maybe it depends on what the committee values, because if Michigan loses, I think they're automatically out. I think if Cincinnati loses, they're automatically out. Then the
Cincinnati
Alabama
loses, they're definitively out.
Right. So to me, those 2 would be out. The problem is that if Baylor wins, can Baylor jump Notre Dame? Does the committee think that Notre Dame being idle, do they hold that against them?
It's and not to mention, do you hold it against them, 1, and 2, the whole thing with the coach?
Well, they said the coach. They brought that point
up. The coach is going to play a factor.
They said that on Tuesday night, which infuriated everybody.
Mm-hmm. So is beating Oklahoma State and having a couple of who's 7-8? What are the actual numbers? Oh, Notre Dame is 6. Who's 7, 8, 9?
I'm pulling up the exact numbers. Give me one second.
Yeah, because if Baylor's 9, that means they're jumping over 8.
So
and
7 is Ohio State. They're idle.
And they don't play.
And number 8 is Ole Miss. They're also idle.
They do not play.
And they're not going to put either one of those teams because they're both 2-loss teams.
Mm-hmm.
And they're idle. Now, the
Baylor
problem
has
is,
how many losses?
What's that?
Baylor has how many losses? 1.
Now, that's what they can do. Baylor has 2 losses as well, but they would be a 2-loss conference champion.
Ooh.
So you got these two conflicting things going on.
Yeah, Notre Dame only has.
Notre Dame has 1 loss.
And they lost to Cincinnati.
And that's the other thing. If Cincinnati loses, does that make Notre Dame's resume look worse?
If Notre Dame beat Cincinnati, they would have been undefeated. If you're Notre Dame, you're saying my only loss of the whole year is to a team that you're saying is the 3rd best in the country.
But if Cincinnati loses, then what happens?
If Cincinnati loses, well, that's funny because if Cincinnati loses, you would think Notre Dame would say, hey, one of your teams lost. The problem is the team that lost is the team that beat you.
Right.
I think Notre Dame almost needs Cincinnati to win. I think they need Cincinnati to win to say, look, and they need Michigan to lose to say you're number 2 team. Because Cincinnati, you would think possibly would move up to 2. Notre Dame would then say, the number 2 team in the country is the only team that beat us all year.
Right. I think what Notre Dame needs is they need Michigan and Oklahoma State to lose.
Yeah, Baylor
but they
with
need
the 2
Cincinnati,
losses.
but they need Cincinnati to win.
Baylor with the 2 losses, if they beat Oklahoma State, they would jump over Ole Miss and Ohio State.
Correct.
And then they need Alabama, maybe Cincinnati, and Michigan to lose.
To me, the scenario that gets Notre Dame in is Georgia wins, Michigan loses, Alabama loses, Cincinnati wins, Oklahoma State loses. That's Notre Dame's path.
Because there's a possibility, if you're playing along out there listening, there's a possibility, a small possibility. It's not that small, though. I mean, if all 3 of them lose, which is, I guess, Michigan's a favorite. Michigan's a favorite. Cincinnati's a favorite. Alabama's not. But if all 3 of them lose, you could conceivably see 3 new teams in there next week.
Again, I think that, so you're saying Michigan, Bama, and Cincinnati all lose, right?
Michigan, Bama, Cincinnati. Yes, all 3 of those lose. Could they be replaced by 3 new teams?
I could see definitely if Oklahoma State wins, they're in.
Because now you have a 2-loss Michigan team, but then you have no Big Ten team in the 4.
Right. And that's when you got to have a conversation about what does the committee value? Does the committee value wins or losses? Because they've been very inconsistent about this.
Yeah.
The one thing they have told us from year to year is 1 year a loss is more valuable than a win, and then the next year it's the opposite. So
see, I would like that. I would like all 3 of those teams to lose, and then would 3 new teams replace them?
I think at least 2 would.
Or does Michigan go from 2 to 4?
I think it depends on how they lose, because the committee, for some reason, has this weird idea that a loss isn't a loss. I don't understand how that works, but they've
I don't
claimed,
even know what the hell you're saying. A loss isn't a loss.
Well, they claim that not all losses are the same. So, like, if some there's been times.
Explain this to me a little better.
Okay, so the head of the college football committee, the guy who speaks for everybody, because apparently nobody can speak for themselves. Only this one guy can speak every week.
Well, somebody has to be the representative that speaks.
Yeah, but I like to hear from the other committee members too.
You want them to sing all at the same time?
No, but I think that would be interesting to hear different perspectives from people on the committee, not just the one guy. The one guy claims that.
Well, isn't he speaking as the representative of what the committee thinks?
He's speaking as the representative of the consensus vote.
Okay. Well, somebody has to be in charge.
I don't even know if he's in charge, but the point is that he claims that not all wins and not all losses are equal.
Not all wins and not all losses are equal. Okay.
So, like, for example, when
if you beat, like, if you're Cincinnati and you beat Notre Dame, that's a big win. If you're Cincinnati, you beat Navy, that's not.
Correct. But the committee
But if
recently,
you lose to Navy, that's debilitating.
well, here's the thing. They barely beat Navy earlier this year, and the committee was docking that against Cincinnati for 2 weeks.
See, I don't like the whole you didn't beat them by enough. That to me is, I mean, you're not going to have your best week every week.
The
And part of
committee
being
does
a good
it all
team,
the time, Mike.
right?
They
But
do it
part of
all
being
the
a good
time.
team is I didn't have my best today and I still won.
Yeah, they don't care about that.
Especially when you're playing Navy, because Navy is just such an outlier of a 1 week thing where you only have so many days to get ready for that completely different style. And I get it. Well, other teams blow Navy out. Yeah, but like sometimes you just don't have your best and you're playing against a team that shows you something completely different.
Right. And guess what? Some weeks there might be a reason why you didn't play well. Maybe someone was injured. Maybe somebody got injured in the game. Maybe there's a targeting penalty. Someone got kicked out in the second quarter. There's a lot of reasons why you don't always win by, 2-3 touchdowns.
Right. Well, I'm looking for the chaos because I think it would be a fun conversation. I love the college football playoff conversation. It is so because, I mean, there is no rhyme or reason. It is really, to me, one of the things I don't like about the college football situation is, to me, it's a made-for-television playoff event, and
Right.
that is not a way to run your playoffs.
Really quick, is there a matchup you would love to see? Like, is there a matchup that, not worrying about 100% the outcome, is there an outcome that's reasonable that you would love to see in the college football playoff?
Well, we're going to see Georgia and Alabama this week. That'll give us a little insight on whether we want to see that again or not. That's
Right.
one. Two, I don't think Oklahoma City. I'm looking at the TV. They have Oklahoma City basketball there. I don't think Oklahoma State does anything for me. I don't think Baylor does anything for me. Notre Dame doesn't do anything for me. So realistically, no. I mean, Cincinnati, why I like the story and I think they deserve the shot, because we've heard this before. Oh, all these teams are going to get killed. Well, Boise State, everybody said, oh, they're going to get killed. And they went in and blew the doors off Oklahoma. Same with West Virginia when they were in the Big East. And everybody said the Big East shouldn't get a spot in the BCS back then. And West Virginia went in and Rochambeau'd Clemson. They scored 70 on them. And then the next year, same thing, or 2 years later, I think it was, West Virginia, they're in the Big East. They shouldn't be able to, play in the BCS. And they went and smoked Oklahoma.
And don't forget, a few years ago, that UCF team we talked about, they took out Auburn fairly easily in that bowl game.
That's right. So I want to see these teams be given the opportunity. And if they're consistently just not competitive, then, okay, you've made your – but there has been no evidence of that these teams can't compete in a one-game situation.
Right, because the one game is the ultimate equalizer.
The one game is the key. If you told me Cincinnati played in the SEC, they're probably 500, if that. If they played in the Big Ten, they probably have – now, they probably recruit differently.
Right.
All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. What's going on with the Sixers? They haven't won back-to-back games in over a month. They looked terrible last night against the Celtics. Al Horford was like rejuvenated last night. Embiid, Tyrese Maxey was not on the floor for the final call of the game. By the way, what the hell was the final call of the game last night? I mean, that was awful.
I have no idea what they were trying to call.
They had no point guard on the floor. They don't even have a point guard, but they didn't have anybody even masquerading as a point guard. Keith Smith is going to join us, national NBA writer, next here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. We're live at Chickies and Pete's in Atlantic City at the Tropicana. We're brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt, 6211 Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. And don't forget, coming up at 3:40 today, it is the Fantasy Fix with Sky Guasco. If you have a fantasy football question for Week 13, text it in right now, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. And if you have a fantasy football question for Sky Guasco in the Fantasy Fix, we'll have that coming up for you in about 15 minutes. Stick around. The holiday times are here, and that means the NBA's heating up. Right around Christmas is when we'll start to put our eyes a little bit closer to the Sixers, who lost to the Celtics last night. But they have not played well in about a month now. What are some of the reasons? Keith Smith, Spotrac.com, as we take a look. Now, they played the Celtics last night, who both these teams have their own issues that we want to dive into. But that was an ugly game last night, man. That was like a 70s game there. Just defense and no offense, no three-point shot back then. I mean, that was an ugly, ugly game last night. And, Keith, I guess you got two teams that are really just kind of struggling to find out who they are right now. By the way, he mentioned Freedom. That was formerly Enos Cantor, who is now Enos Freedom. So that's who he was mentioning there. When you saw the Sixers last night kind of up close there, whatever happened on the last play, Maxi's not even on the floor. I don't know what was going on there, but rough night for Maxey, rough night for Embiid. You take a look at them offensively, and it just looks like a team that is still not finding itself. And I don't know if it's, they don't have Ben Simmons or what it is, but what is missing from that team right now? You look at the whole Simmons situation, and it really has not progressed. But now getting a chance to see them, 20-some games into the season now, are they missing him? Do they not miss him? Do you still have questions about what this team is without him? Are we finding things out about them without him? What kind of sense do you make of who they are and what they're missing without Ben Simmons? Yeah, and obviously, as we mentioned, the Simmons thing is not resolved. Watching them now, do they need Ben Simmons? Are they okay without him? where are you on? Because there's a lot of people that say, look, you know what Simmons is, and you're just going to be X. Are you now seeing that without him saying, you know what, maybe they did miss this guy? Or are you saying, you know what, they've been okay without him. Maybe they can move on without him. Yeah. Here's the other thing, Keith. You just mentioned his salary and that it's just this black hole kind of sitting there. If they trade him and they then get 3 role type of players, now you're bringing in 3 guys who essentially will be taking minutes from the other guys that they have. And you have a situation that you're familiar with where Boston had like 12 good players and they didn't know that the rotations were just a mess. I think Atlanta's going through that right now where they had just had a lot of good players and it was hard to find, steady minutes. And then the big part of that is you bring 3 guys in that have a salary that matches Simmons. That then kind of hurts your chances of getting another max player to pair it with Embiid at some point. Right. All right, Sixers lose last night. Their struggles kind of continue. We'll see if they can get it together. They do have their roster. They had a lot of COVID issues. They lose to the Celtics 88-87. We'll have them back Friday night against the Hawks right here on 97.3 ESPN. Keith, we'll catch up with you next week, man. Good stuff. A real quick little breakdown of what's happening with this team and how hard it is to fix it and how hard it is to figure out who they are because they're missing that big salary in there. All right, when we come back, Sky Guasco's here. The Fantasy Fix, week number 13. If you have a fantasy football question, here's the time to get it in. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Hit us up with your fantasy football questions for week number 13. Sky Guasco answers your questions from the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast. He joins us next right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. All right, time now for the Fantasy Fix. Sky Guasco from the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast on the Believe Podcast Network. He is back. He's brought to you by the Piccadilly Inn, your best pick for South Jersey's best wings, Route 206 in Chemung, New Jersey. I'm Mike Gill. The Fantasy Fix Week 13 starts tonight, and Sky is back today with a look at Week 13. We got Dallas and the Saints going on tonight. What's going on, Sky?
Hey, Mike, great to be back, man. Week 13, we got 2 weeks until the fantasy football playoffs kick off. It is crunch time.
Here we go. A lot of people need your help. All right, let's start off tonight because Dallas Saints, who are some of the guys that you want active in tonight's game?
Well, there's a lot of familiar names here, but there's a lot of question marks as well. So at the quarterback position, we're going to go Dak automatic. And Taysom Hill, if you need a streamable quarterback, I'm okay with Taysom Hill rushing upside. We know that's king in fantasy football. Running backs, Alvin Kamara out, Mark Ingram back in, Tony Pollard and Zeke Elliott splitting work in Dallas. If you need just guaranteed points, I'd go with Zeke. If you're looking for upside for a big win against a quality opponent, I would actually ride Tony Pollard, believe it or not, over Zeke. And I'm okay with Mark Ingram, but the Saints are without 2 of their offensive linemen in Remchek and Armstead. Wide receiver-wise, Amari Cooper, questionable. If he plays, I'm still not confident in him. I'm all about CeeDee Lamb. On the other side for the Saints, I'm not interested in any wide receivers for the Saints, and I'm good with Dalton Schultz at the tight end position.
All right, there you go. There's your Thursday night game there. We got a couple of things that we want to touch on that are big in the fantasy world. I want to get some questions in before we get our listener questions. We got a ton of listener questions this week, so we'll try to get more of those in than normal. 609-403-0973. 2 wide receiver things before we get there. What about Mooney from the Bears? Seems like he's a guy who is really starting to jump off the page.
Yeah, Darnell Mooney has actually been one of my favorite guys all season long. I was really high on him in the preseason as well. Of course, Allen Robinson hasn't been much, unfortunately. Darnell Mooney, 16 targets 2 weeks ago against the Ravens, 8 again last week. He has 5 or more receptions in every game this season except for 4. 120-plus yards each of the last 2 games, Mike, against the Cardinals this week. I'm all good with Mooney regardless of the quarterback.
All right, over in Cincinnati, Jamar Chase was going crazy. Then all of a sudden it seems that teams are starting to kind of change the way they're defending him. Are you starting to worry about Chase for the stretch run here?
I'm not worried about Chase. He's still my number 6 wide receiver this week. But you're right. I mean, just 3 receptions in 3 of his last 5 games. The targets haven't been there either. The Chargers have been a very good secondary as well. I'm not worried about him, and I'm not going to bench him per se. But if you have another stud wide receiver, a better matchup, I would be okay. Like Jalen Waddle, for example, maybe, Michael Pittman, DeAndre Hopkins is coming back, CeeDee Lamb tonight. Those are guys I would play over Jamar Chase maybe this particular week with the matchup, but Jamar Chase has got to be in your lineups more often than not.
A lot of questions. We're short on time, so let's get to the listener questions here. Sky Glasgow, here we go. Wentz or Mahomes? That seems easy, right?
Mahomes every time.
All right, Mahomes every single time. Need 1. Devonta Smith, Tyler Lockett, Mike Williams, and Mooney.
Let's see. Give me the first 2 again, Mike.
Devonta Smith, Tyler Lockett, Mike Williams, Mooney.
Okay, I'm going to stick with Lockett. I know it's been tough with Russ, but he's been the option there. I think it's a bounce back against the Niners at home.
All right. What about Shaequan Barclay or Javonte Williams?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm going to ride my man Javonte Williams. He's got the horse now with Melvin Gordon a bit banged up on Sunday Night Football. So I'm actually going to go with Javonte Williams here. I can't trust Saquon right now.
All right. What about Taysom Hill or Teddy Bridgewater?
Taysom Hill.
That's tonight. Make sure you get him in. Tight end, 1 point for a reception. Logan Thomas, Freiermuth.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm going to stick with Pat Freiermuth here against the Ravens. Even with Ebron in, he's catching the touchdowns. I do like Logan Thomas. I'll talk about him in a second, but I'm going to stick with Pat Freiermuth against them.
All right. Hey, Sky, need some help here. Big Ben, should I drop him and pick up Tyler Heineke?
Yikes. Yeah, that's tough. I would be okay picking up Tyler Heineke, to be honest. I actually started him last week. He was a bit disappointing versus Seattle, but I like Tyler Heineke over Big Ben. So, yes, I would make that move.
All right, running back PPR. It is Devonta Freeman and Hunt. Who?
Kareem Hunt or Devonta Freeman.
Kareem Hunt, Devonta Freeman. Yes.
Yeah, they're both very close there. I'm actually going to go with Kareem Hunt. I think the Browns get it back together here. They're going to ride the run game. The Ravens sold out on the run last week, shut down obviously the Browns. But I'm actually going to go back to the well there. I think Kareem Hunt gets it right this week.
All right, I need a quarterback here. Start Lamar Jackson, 4 picks last week, or Dak Prescott tonight.
Wow, that's a tough one. I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson. I think he's going to be just fine. This is a rivalry game here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers defense has not been great. The rush has been fine, but that just means he might run more. I'm going to stick with Lamar here.
Hey, Sky, thanks for all your help this year. He wants to know Hunter Renfrow as he snuck his way into a must-play option.
Yeah, yes, and that's tough. That's always relative to your lineup, but honestly, Hunter Renfrow right now in my top 24 wide receivers for this week as well. He has been well. Look, 7 targets, 7, 7, 7, 4, and 8 in his last 5 games. He has been getting it done. He's catching touchdowns. I like him against Washington this week.
Here's another question for you, Sky. This is an interesting one. Local oriented. Jalen Hurts, if he's not 100%, he wants to know, is he a must start this week because of that ankle injury?
No, he's not a must start, unfortunately. I like Jalen Hurts a lot in general, but honestly, against the Jets, I think you get a bit of a boost there. But, guys like Kirk Cousins, maybe Joe Burrow, even Derek Carr, I would consider over Jalen Hurts. He's not running as much as we need him to, and 4 picks last week. It's going to be tough. The Jets have been decent against the pass this year in the last 5 games. So not a must start, but it's hard to bench him.
All right, Sky Guasco, the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast. It's on the Believe Podcast Network. They also do a live YouTube start-sit show on Sunday mornings. It starts at 10 a.m., and they will answer all the questions that I didn't get to today. So if you have a question on Sunday morning, you can watch them live on the YouTube stream, and they will answer your questions over there from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. kickoff. But right now, Sky, he's got all his waiver wires, favorite play, must starts, all that good stuff. The floor is yours.
All right, my man. Thank you. So deep dive on quarterback this week. Tyrod Taylor. In single quarterback leagues, you're probably not going to play him, but in Superflex, if you need to, with 4 teams on a bye, Tyrod Taylor going up against the Colts here. The Colts are giving up the 6th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. I'm okay with him. Tyrod Taylor over the last 2 weeks, 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns. Fire up Tyrod Taylor. At running back, this one seems like a plug and play, but in case you missed it, Alexander Mattison filling in for Dalvin Cook, going up against those Lions in Detroit. 3rd most points against running backs are the Lions giving up here. In the 3 weeks that Alexander Madison's gotten the bulk of the work for Dalvin Cook out, week 3 versus Seattle, 20 points. Week 5 versus these Detroit Lions, 23 points. Last week in just a half against my Niners, 10, which could have averaged out to 20 plus. Alexander Mattison is that guy. My wide receiver this tonight, regardless of Amari Cooper, but especially if he sits, CeeDee Lamb going up against the New Orleans Saints. 6th most points to wide receivers, believe it or not. New Orleans is allowing 252 pass yards per game, 23rd most in the NFL. If Amari Cooper sits out, CeeDee Lamb is guaranteed, and Lattimore will probably take Cooper anyway, so I like Lamb regardless. Logan Thomas, I will take him against the Raiders. 2nd most fantasy points to the tight end position. 6 targets last week in his return off of IR. And at DST, I'm going to go back to the well with the Buccaneers going up against Atlanta. Atlanta's been terrible on offense outside of Cordero Patterson, giving up the most fantasy points to opposing defenses.
All right, there you go, Sky Guasco from the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast. And by the way, whoever asked that question about Hunt, are the Browns on a bye this week? So you don't want to use Hunt. He's not playing this week. So whoever asked that question, sorry, but your Kareem Hunt is on a bye this week. So you're going to have to use who was the guy he asked? It was Freeman or Hunt.
Yeah.
And Hunt is on a bye this week.
I do like him moving forward, though. The Browns running backs moving forward, I do like for the fantasy playoffs. So,
hey, I just asked the listeners questions. If that guy wants to play Hunt while he's on a bye, that's up to him, man.
There you go.
All right, Sky Guasco, the Start Sit Show is live on the YouTube channel, and you can check that out at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning and get your other questions in there. Don't forget, we're running out of the buys, I think, this week and next week. The last 2 buys week, and then, of course, get your Thursday guys in. And then we're going to have the Saturday games coming in a couple of weeks here, too. So get ready for that. Sky, great to talk to you, man. We will see you again next week.
Always a pleasure, Mike. Good luck, everybody.
There's Sky Guasco, the host of the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast on the Believe Podcast Network. Always great to have him and Bobby, who, of course, is his tag team partner. They are here every week for the Fantasy Fix, and that is brought to you by the Piccadilly Inn, your best pick in South Jersey for the best wings, Route 206 in Chemung. I do like how the listeners caught on to Kareem Hunt being out. Yes, the Browns are on a bye this week, so you should not use Kareem Hunt this week. Look, I don't have the schedule in front of me. I tell you, my first look at the schedule is tonight at 5 o'clock. I'm not lying. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Football at 4, Andrew DeCecco. The matchups to watch, the Eagles, the Jets. He'll give us the breakdown. What areas of this game does he like? Where can the Eagles really exploit this Jets team who really struggle against the run? We'll get into that coming up next. And the Phillies signed a closer or a reliever last night. What is their intentions with him? Go to 973ESPN.com to get my thoughts on how they might use Corey Knebel in the 2022 season, if they have one. That's over at 973ESPN.com. And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you locally by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. I'm Mike Gill. On the other end of the line, Andrew DeCecco from InsideTheBirds.com. He joins me now. It's the Eagles and the Jets this weekend in MetLife Stadium for the second week in a row for Philadelphia. We're going to look at the matchups to watch in that game, some of the breakdown here by Andrew, and he joins me now here on the Sports Bash on a Thursday. Andrew DeCecco, what's up, my man? All is good. I love this Thursday. We get to kind of get our hands dirty and break this matchup down. I want to first get your thoughts on the Thursday night game tonight, Dallas and the Saints, because this game has turned into an interesting one here locally because Dallas, obviously a loss, brings them back to the pack again. And the Saints, if they win, believe it or not, at the end of the night, they would be the 7th seed. Wow. The Saints are still shorthanded. No Kamara. Looks like both tackles are still out. They've been a mess the last 4 weeks. They got lambasted on Thursday night. And then here's Dallas. Cooper's expected to return tonight. We think their offensive line might be back in shape a little bit here. But you think adding Hill, is that a little bit of a problem for Dallas's defense? I want to get your opinion on this because if I say it, I'm a hater, yada, yada. Is Dallas a team that is disappointing, overrated? I mean, is it another case of us just overrating this Cowboys team? Are they better than we've given them credit for? Have the injuries been a problem? What is the reason for this Cowboys team who is, not where I guess a lot of people thought they would be? I agree with that. I mean, and here's the problem I have. The last 4 years, I think they've been the best roster in the division and yet haven't won one of those divisions in the last 4 years. And it's like I keep ending up with egg on my face because I'll say the Cowboys are the best roster. And I think their problem has been Jason Garrett in the previous incarnation of the Cowboys' good rosters. I think he was just an awful head coach. And now this team here, terrible. I like that. Now this head coach and this roster, you look at why they're underperforming. I like what Steve Young said the other night. He's like, hey, this is who they've been for 25 years. It's just a disappointing team. They constantly get overvalued. And I think we all fall into that trap. And some of it, I think, Andrew, is because of the mediocrity behind them. It's, well, Washington, New York, Philadelphia, they've all got their own problems. Dallas is in far better roster shape than them. And realistically, this division should not be at an arm's length right now. But do you think that Washington, who right now is the 7th seed, in your mind, are they a player? You know, the thing about Washington at the beginning of the year, and I agree with you, I felt they were going to have a top 5 defense in the league, if not the best defense in the league. Their defense was horrible. Now, here's their defense turning around after they've lost their best player on the defensive side of the ball. So it's interesting to watch this team kind of come together, losing Chase Young, off to the bad start. And then offensively, it seems like they've almost taken a page from what the Eagles have done and just said, hey, we're going to just simplify things. Andrew Checo, Football 4. All right, Eagles-Jets this weekend. We talked a little bit about the division around Philadelphia, disappointing loss last week. And it looked like a team. We talked about this last week, Andrew. What are you going to look like when you go into a game and you're now expected to win? And the result was not good. It did not look like a team that looked like they were ready to be a favorite in a game on the road there. So back to the drawing board this week. What are some of the little things that they need to clean up from that game last week? Yeah. I guess one of the questions that I want to get your opinion and breakdown on is this. Obviously, if you look at the Jets' run defense in any game this year, they're awful. Philly likes to run the ball. So is this a clear mismatch that the Eagles can exploit in this game and just say, look, we're going to go back to the basics and we are just going to go back to running the ball 35, 40 times in this particular game? Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, by the way, speaking of the running game, you've got some injury situations with the Eagles. Illness is the problem right now with Boston Scott, a knee for Jordan Howard. So we don't know what their situations are going to be. And I believe Miles Sanders has a bit of an ankle issue here. So you got all three guys appearing. I didn't see today's injury list. If it came out yet, I did not get the email yet from the Eagles. But which of the three backs in your mind gives them the most consistency in the run game? By the way, the injury report is Howard DNP, Scott DNP, and Sanders limited. So you had two guys who did not practice today. All right, the run game, we know Philly can run. Jets do a poor job stopping the run here. But the whole Howard ankle situation, I mean, okay, it looks like he's going to play. But if he's not 100%, has he shown enough as a passer to say, you could take that element away from me and I'm still going to be, out there playing and contributing? I mean, if you are the Eagles and he's not 100%, do you think about, hey, maybe he's not our best option? No, Jalen Hurts. Yeah. Yeah, you're darn right he's going to want to play. I guess the question is, if his ankle's not 100%, is he taking a huge element? I don't think he ran the ball one time in the second half of that game against the Giants. You wonder how much that ankle was a problem that he did not take off once in the second half of that game against the Giants, and he did not play his best game on Sunday. So that's something to keep an eye on. Let's flip to defense. If the Jets do something well offensively, what is it? If you're John Gannon, what is your strategy this week? We've seen an Eagles defense that has played much better in the last couple of weeks. I mean, to give up 13 points on the road and lose that game to travesty. So what is John Gannon trying to do this week again against this Jets team? Zach Wilson, obviously the number 2 pick in the draft. Let's get what your draft thoughts were on him when he was drafted and what he has so far done, which isn't much in the NFL. Yeah, and so far that has kind of played out for him in the NFL. He has really struggled. He got hurt in last week's game, came back. We would imagine that he will be the guy that plays this week for the Jets as they host the Eagles back at the MetLife Stadium for the Eagles and Jets. And you can hear that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. And obviously the Eagles are another road favorite in this game. And I would imagine after losing to the Giants last week, they go in much more focused. But do you see a path to victory for the Jets in this game, or is this a game where Philadelphia should be able to take care of business? All right, keep it simple, man. Keep it simple. This Jets defense against the run, awful, and their offense doesn't put up a whole lot of points, although they did win last week. So the Jets coming in with a little momentum. Plus, you got the Howie Roseman versus Joe Douglas matchup here. Joe Douglas, of course, the GM for the Jets. He wants to show his old boss, hey, I'm going in the right direction. That's the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. That's Andrew DeCecco, InsideTheBirds.com. And, of course, he'll be back on Tuesday to take a look back at Eagles and Jets. Andrew, enjoy the game, man. All right, that's Andrew DeCecco. And, of course, he joins us Tuesdays and Thursdays for football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. And it is brought to you locally by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Atlantic City. Reserve your game day experience today at Caesars.com. Eagles and Jets, thoughts on that? Plus, Sixers lose last night, but I got some Phillies thoughts as well. Corey Knable, what is the intention with that contract? 1 year, $10 million. Go to 973ESPN.com for my thoughts on that. Coming up at 5, first look at the NFL schedule, and then Rob Motti tonight with Eagles, Jets, and NFL thoughts. Dallas plays tonight against the Saints, and you can hear that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. We hope you're enjoying a beautiful Thursday. It's the warm, like 60 degrees outside. Enjoy the weather because it's supposed to get a little chilly the rest of the way, but it's a busy time of year for us. Sixers tomorrow night against the Hawks. College football, we got all the championship game, triple header this weekend with the Big 12, the SEC, and the Big 10 championships. You can hear them all the possible chaos. It will all ensue right here on 97.3 ESPN. And then we've got Eagles, Jets, followed by Ravens, Steelers, and then the Sunday night game, Broncos and Chiefs. It's all right here on 97.3 ESPN, your home for Eagles football. All right, welcome back. Another week in the NFL is here. It starts tonight, Week 13, Thursday Night Football, and we have it for you live on 97.3 ESPN. It's the Cowboys and the Jets, JRWagerPro.com, and the Wager Pro app. It's another game, Thursday Night Football, and you can only hear the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. And, JR, I know this one tonight, you got a good one. Playoff implications as we're on Week 13 of the NFL. All right. As you said, you've been on a nice little streak here as well. Let's throw a couple your way to get some thoughts. All right. Here's one for me that is kind of tickling my fancy. You've got Tampa Bay, seems to get hot, but they're a double-digit road favorite, 11 points at Atlanta. Double-digit road, which the road teams in the NFL this year doesn't seem to matter, but a double-digit home favorite. What do you think? All right, we got another road double-digit favorite this week, so I want to get your thoughts on this one because this one is the Colts. The Colts who lost to Tampa last week. Now they're on the road, a 10-point favorite at Houston, who's got all sorts of problems. All right, this is Week 13 in the NFL. You've been on a nice little streak here. Been using the totals as your favorite play of the week. So what's your favorite play Week 13? There you go. Under in the Bengals game this week against the Chargers. That's one of the games I find interesting. The Bengals are now a favorite. All of a sudden, Vegas trusts the Bengals. That's an interesting comment that I made just there. All right, we got Thursday Night Football. It's possible. But man, just to see the Bengals as a favorite this late in the season it's a whole new world out there. Jr. We got Thursday Night Football tonight, and it's the Cowboys and it's the Saints. And don't forget, you get that game tonight right here on 97.3 ESPN. You get the information. You can listen to the game right here. And it's the Cowboys and Saints. You can only hear it on 97.3. All right, another week with JR and Wager Pro in the book. He's been on a little streak here. 6 in a row winners for you with the free pick. That one this week was the Chargers and the Bengals. He likes the under in that game. But I think he said wait until like 10 minutes before kickoff to get that over total to go up a little bit more, around 50, 51 and a half. We'll go over all the lines. I'll get my first look at the NFL schedule coming up at 5 o'clock tonight. Well, when we come back, the Phillies made a signing yesterday. It's probably the last signing until maybe March. But what does the contract actually mean? Take a dive into that over at 973ESPN.com. We'll discuss, plus what the Phillies bullpen might look like entering Clearwater. It's all coming up here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. And don't forget, the Sports Bash is brought to you by Deborah Heart and Lung Center. When it's your heart, you don't take chances. Be sure, demanddeborah.org. Coming back with a little Phillies conversation for you as the hot stove has been completely turned off. We'll discuss that more coming up next. All right, we're back and live on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. What's going on, everybody? I think reading into this Corey Knebel contract, 1 year, $10 million. What does it mean? I've been asked, hey, what do you think about this contract? What do you think about this signing? I would say that the contract to me, 1 year, $10 million, tells me, all right, that the Phillies are signing Corey Knebel to be the closer and trying to get him at a discounted closer rate. Right? This is a show me 1 year, $10 million. Knebel wants to close. Okay. He was a closer in Milwaukee. He had 39 saves. He then had 16 saves the next season. So here's a guy who had 55 saves over a 2-year span. He ended up getting hurt, Tommy John surgery, sent to the Dodgers, has a good year with the Dodgers. He's 30 years old. This contract tells me the Phillies know they need a closer, but they know they need a left fielder and a center fielder and possibly a shortstop, right? But they know they need to get this closer. They have to have a closer on this team. It's been a disaster for them. This is them trying to get a closer on the discount rack with a closer who doesn't have the resume to make closer money, right? Closers are getting paid more than $10 million a year, but Knebel doesn't have the resume to say I deserve more than $10 million. So the two sides essentially have come together here and said, I want to close, but I don't have the resume to close. So pay me a little bit more money. I'll be your closer at a discounted rate so I can prove to get back on the free agent market again next year and maybe get that bigger dollar for them. And the Phillies are a more than willing partner. This way they get a closer. They don't have to pay closer money to go get Kenley Jansen, Iglesias, who went back to the Angels. They don't have to make a trade to go get Josh Hader. They don't have to make a trade to go get Kimbrel. For $10 million, they get a closer. It doesn't blow their budget, and now they have a closer at a discounted rate. That's how I read this.
Does it bother you that they went down this road? They went the discount rack instead of going big time?
Does it bother me? Not necessarily, because I'll tell you why. One, I don't think they have the trade assets. If I thought they had the trade ammunition, I'd say, go get Josh Hader. Here's the best guy on the market. The Brewers aren't, they would trade him. The Phillies don't have the package to trade for Josh Hader. They don't have the package to trade for Craig Kimbrel, right? So I thought those two were long shot possibilities. Kenley Jansen's not leaving the Dodgers, in my opinion. And if he does, he's 34, 35 years old. I mean, how many more elite closing seasons is he going to bring you? I thought they got creative, found an option. Here's the problem. It's like David Robertson. Here's a guy who's been hurt a lot. You brought Dave Robertson in here. He was a guy who was on the discount rack, and you thought you got a discount rack closer. And how many innings did Dave Robertson pitch for you? 4?
If that.
Right? I think Corey Knebel's way better than Robertson is. I like this signing. I would love this signing if he was your setup man. The problem is I don't see a realistic better option that they could have got to be your closer. Both sides win here. Knebel wants to be a closer. He knows he doesn't have the resume to get closer money right now. He needs the 1 year show me, prove it deal. And the Phillies are a willing participant in this situation. So it's a win-win for both sides. Nobody wins this deal. Nobody says, hey, we got one over on you. The Phillies get a closer that they desperately need. And Knebel gets to show that he can close again. The question is, can he? Sure, I think he can. Here's the problem. What the hell else does this bullpen have? They still have major issues in that bullpen. You're looking at a bullpen with Corey Knebel as the closer, who's unproven. Who's throwing in the 8th inning? Sir Anthony Dominguez, who's thrown 1 inning in 2 years? is probably your setup man right now. I guess Connor Brogdon is a guy that they like. He would probably be like your 7th inning guy. And then you're back with the same minutia of Jose Alvarado, Sam Coonrod, those 2 guys, Bailey Falter, and a bunch of guys who have been on the scrap heap. So here's what I would say. They still need a left fielder. They still need a center fielder. They probably need a shortstop, although unless they let Bryson Stott get a realistic chance to win that. But if they don't, they need to invest more. If you're only putting $10 million into the closer spot, you need to find more options in the bullpen. I mean, I think they need to bring in 1, maybe 2 more bullpen arms for when they go to Clearwater.
The problem is, Mike, how does this lockout then impact that need?
Well, here's the thing. Okay. And I think I heard you say this last night on game night. And a lot of people are saying this. Oh, they finally did something, Everything that they still need is out there. Like, it's not like wish list items are getting snagged from them. I can understand if Chris Bryant got signed, Schwarber got signed. Who are some of the other names that are escaping me that they are linked to right now?
I mean, I know that, for a while there was speculation that they were going to try to make a bid on Max Scherzer, which I never thought was real.
No, I'm talking about the outfielders that they've been linked to. Chris Taylor, I think he went back to the Dodgers.
He went
right?
back. Well, they didn't officially sign him, so technically he's still out there.
So Chris Bryant is still available.
Right.
Kyle Schwarber is still available.
Taylor is technically still available.
Taylor, I guess, is still out there. And then the other, Nick Castellanos. They're all still available. So the fact that you didn't jump in with 2 feet, you didn't miss out on anything yet. They weren't going to sign Max Scherzer. I mean, come on. Who thought they were going to sign Max Scherzer?
Well, that's what I said. There was a lot of rumors out there. The Phillies, you know how it was. The Phillies were in on everybody and their cousin.
I did not hear Scherzer at all. Like, that was not one. Every outfielder I've heard, Castellanos, the names I just mentioned, Bryant, Chris Taylor, Schwarber, those 4 names have been out there. So they're still available. They didn't make a move yet. Like, this to me is the classic NFL free agency when the Washington football team, the New York Jets, and the Cleveland Browns go jumping in with 2 feet, and the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New England Patriots all sit back and they say, we'll just wait our turn. And then all those fan bases go, well, we haven't done anything yet. Yeah, and the Washington football team stinks every single year, yet they win free agency. Like, I'm not going to kill the Phillies for not being aggressively jumping in here yet. And the reason being, all the guys that they're interested in, they're still available. As a fan base, or, we have this feeling of, if we don't do something, everybody's passing us. Okay, the Mets went out and got Sterling Marte and Max Scherzer. You were not getting Max Scherzer. They got Marte. All right, that's one name that you were interested in, but there are still guys that you have been tied to that are still available. It's a different thing. If you told me, Josh, well, Castellanos signed, he's off the board, and Schwarber signed, and he's off the board, and Chris Bryant signed, and he's off the board, okay, then I would say, well, then you waited too long, and all of your options are gone. What are you going to do to fix this team? But all of those options, this is just one of those, the aesthetics of it. That's what it is. It's the aesthetics of, you haven't made a move yet. It's one thing to say you haven't made a move and all these guys are not available yet. But you haven't made a move and all these guys are still available. That's not hit the panic button.
So then I'll ask you again, then how does the lockout then impact all this? Because we don't know exactly when things are going quote unquote back to normal.
No, you cut out there, by the way. But how's the lockout impact it?
Right, like we don't know exactly when they're coming back.
Right. I would say it would be like, put it this way. Remember when the lockout in the NFL happened in 2011 And as soon as the lockout was lifted, the Eagles signed like 4 guys like the first 10 minutes, like Nnamdi Asomugha and
wasn't that Jason Babin too?
Yeah, they just signed a bunch of guys. These guys are still talking behind. I mean, who's policing that? Whether you're talking to the agent or not? Yeah, I can't hear you, man. You've got you kind of cutting out over there with whatever's going on. But yeah, look, how does the lockout impact things here? The lockout impacts things that you can't officially sign anything, but nobody else can either. It's not like, okay, we want Nick Castellanos or we want Chris Bryant and we're locked out and now the Mariners can talk to him. The Mariners can't talk to him either. Like, nobody can do anything. But as soon as the lockouts re-lifted, which here's the problem. I think the lockout is going to go longer than people think. A lot of people have asked me, when do you think this will be lifted? Now, there's 2.5 months before pitchers and catchers in spring training.
Correct.
4 months to opening day.
Right.
I think with how far apart they are, here's the big problem. Josh, what is going on in the television world? Cable television is not the same. These regional properties are not making the money that they used to make.
Correct. They don't have the revenue stream anymore.
They do not have the same revenue stream. The players feel like these teams are making this boatload of cash, and I'm not saying they're not. My point is the players feel like they're missing out on all this money. The cable regional TV networks do not have the same stream of income. They don't have that same, you have all these digital platforms, all these streaming services. So the NBC Sports Philadelphias of the world and the NBC Sports Bay Areas and yada, yada, these regional networks don't have the same money that they had. So what baseball has become is the ownership groups are valuing younger players because they don't have to pay them a lot of money. Well, the agents are saying, you guys are taking advantage of this system. You're going with younger players. We want our younger players to be able to get paid more money sooner. Because these guys go into this situation where they're in arbitration. They don't get to make any money for like 5 years. So the owners are saying, look, the agents are saying, you guys are using these young players. You're taking advantage of them. We want those young players to be able to make money sooner. And I think there's going to be the cable TV, the regional TV networks, coupled with that situation there. I think we might see a stare down that might take us past the regular season. Sadly. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Week 13 in the NFL. First look at the NFL schedule. We'll go down it. Favorite games. Who needs to win? Who you rooting for? That's coming up next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Stick around. More Sports Bash is on the way. All right, final hour of the show on a Thursday. We take a look at the NFL schedule. Week 13, our first look at the NFL schedule. I'll try to go down the games, or I will go down the games. I'll try to give you the numbers on the games, my 5 favorite games, who you're rooting for this week, and everything here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. Josh Henning is my producer. Now, Todd Rank typically joins me for this segment. So for the second straight week, or third straight week, I should say, he tells me he has no voice. What do you think about that excuse?
I think if it happens once, okay.
You're going to have to swing that other mic around, dude. Like, grab mic number 2. I don't know how this has to be explained, but that mic obviously is not working, and the other mic is going to have to get swung around. Now, I don't know what's going on over there. All you have to do is grab the other mic, move it over. Where did the other mic go? You give Josh a task. Now, he gets it done, but sometimes he makes it a lot more difficult than it needs to be. You got that there?
Well, if you remember, I was talking to you during the break on the mic.
Well, it's
all of a sudden
working,
stopped
but it's
working.
going in and out. It's kind of like going out, in. You know what I'm saying? So, yes, there are certain words that I can hear, but that's not good for a radio show. Can
you hear me now?
I hear you loud and clear. That mic is working well.
All right, well, give me 1 second. I'm going to readjust this. It's a little closer to me because where it's angled right now, it's not exactly ideal.
Go figure. There's nobody in the building that knows how to fix a microphone in the radio station. Right?
Yeah, it's basically 4 of us left in the building. Well, actually 3 because you're not here.
Right, I'm not there. So
I include you because you're actually working still.
Which is rare in the building. People at this hour actually working. All right, let's go through the games. Here we go. Thursday night football tonight. Dallas and New Orleans. Listen to the game on 97.3 ESPN. Believe it or not, I don't really know any of the lines at all this week. The only ones I kind of know are the ones that we talked about an hour ago. I'm imagining Dallas is a road favorite here. The Saints have had all sorts of problems. I was a little surprised. We talked to DeCecco in the 4 o'clock hour, and he flat out said he liked the Saints in this game. I kind of like the Saints to keep it close, but I'm imagining that Dallas has got to be about a 6-point favorite in this game.
Dallas is currently 6.5 is where it sits right now. Dallas actually opened as a 5-point favorite, but as you might guess, a lot of money is coming in on those Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I figure they would be a popular, and like that. That's why I kind of like the Saints a little bit here. I would figure that the Saints would be, Dallas would be a popular public play tonight. You've got a lot of, Cowboy honks out there probably betting money that the Cowboys are getting all their guys back. But I think the Saints with Hill make it an interesting game. 6.5 at home. Although the Saints just got blown out at home last week. But did they get blown out at home 2 weeks in a row? I think I go with the Saints tonight if I'm playing that one. All right, let me go to Sunday's card. Tampa Bay plays Atlanta. This is one of the games that we did. I think Tampa Bay's favored by 11 in this game. Now, that number to me is a little low. That's a big number on the road. A lot of the road teams, though, have won. As the Falcons, to me, are a team that's kind of leaking oil right now. They had that 4-game win streak. They kind of got back into the mix here. But I kind of like Tampa Bay with the 11, although it's not a game I'm spending my money on.
Yeah, Tampa's sitting at 11 in almost every book. It should be noted, though, that, for whatever it's worth, the majority of the money is not actually on the spread. It's on the over 50.5.
I like the over in this game, too. 50.5. I mean, the Falcons' defense is terrible.
Also, we know the Falcons can score a little. We see them do it against the Bucs earlier this season.
Yeah, their offensive line's pretty bad, though. This is a tough matchup for their defense. You got the Buccaneers who can get to the quarterback with the bad offensive line. Ridley's still out, right?
Currently he's questionable. It was last,
Okay.
But you know how that is. Guy can be questionable, then ruled out the very next day.
Mm-hmm. All right. Arizona's playing Chicago. I would imagine Arizona's a road favorite here. Bears are a disaster. Arizona, I guess Murray's back in the game. It's a big game for Arizona for number 1 seed. I mean, that's still in play for them, so they have to keep the foot on the gas. They're the number 1 seed right now in the NFC. At Chicago would be an awful loss for them. So I got Arizona in the game. I would imagine they're a road favorite here, probably by about a touchdown, maybe 7.5 for Arizona against the Bears. I kind of like the Cardinals to kick the crap out of the Bears this week.
It is exactly 7.5 at every single book right now. And for whatever it's worth, 77% of the bets are going Cardinals on the spread.
How about it? I like the Cardinals in this game. I think this is one of those games. The Bears are putrid. I mean, they got all sorts of problems here. I like Arizona getting Murray back and getting that offense going in gear. So I'll take Arizona in that one. Give me L.A. against Cincinnati. This is one that we talked about an hour ago with JR. Cincinnati, how about this? Cincinnati is a favorite in the game. Week 13, and the Bengals are a 3-point favorite against the Chargers. Now, the Chargers last week, I thought that was a disappointing loss going I think they lost to Denver last week by like 2 touchdowns in that game.
It was such an ugly game, Mike.
Yeah, that was a bad game. And, we talk about Justin Herbert being this great quarterback, and I'm not arguing that he's not. But him being a great quarterback, we talk about Jalen Hurts and, is he a franchise quarterback? And you can't. The Chargers have a franchise quarterback, and they're in the same spot as the Eagles are. I mean, they're 6-5. The Eagles are 5-7. So even having this mythical franchise guy isn't doing anything for these teams. I mean, the Chargers are just an average football team who has a really good quarterback. So Joe Burrow against Justin Herbert. This is a battle of second-year guys. Am I ready to say I'm going to take the Bengals with the 3 points at home this week?
Listen, I think that this is going to be one of the best games of the weekend. And the number that I love on this isn't the 3 that the Bengals are favored. I love the over on the 50. You're telling me that the Chargers and Bengals are going to be a 24-20 game? I think not, Mike.
So you like the over in that game. Okay. Minnesota, Detroit. All right, so Minnesota's in the playoff race. This is a great spot for them. Minnesota, though, on the road at Detroit. Detroit has been, they've been a tough out for the most part. Could Minnesota go on the road, and could Detroit finally get their first win, a division game? I got to imagine Minnesota's a road favorite here, right? We know that. You're not going to have the 0-10, 0-10-1 Lions are not going to be a favorite.
I would hope not.
How big's the number going to be? Give me Minnesota on the road against Detroit, and they are favored, I'm going to say, by 8.
You had the right idea. It's currently the 7.
It's a touchdown
for Minnesota. Yeah, it's not that crazy. It's funny because you would think, if you didn't ever watch the Lions this year, you would think it'd be a bigger number. Then you watch the Lions and you realize they're a pest on everyone's side.
They are a pest, and they haven't played since Thanksgiving Day, so they have a little extra time to prepare for this game as well. All right, Giants and the Dolphins, there's another game for you. Dolphins have played well. I think they've won 4 in a row. I like this Dolphins team all of a sudden. I talked about them being 5-7. They could possibly be a sneaky little playoff possibility. Giants are awful. I mean, they won the game last week. The Eagles were just so bad, and the Giants were that bad that the Eagles had a chance to win that game. The Dolphins are playing well. The Giants are terrible. I like the Dolphins here. I think the Dolphins are – I'm going to go Dolphins by man. Give me Dolphins by 4 over the Giants in Miami this week.
Dolphins are currently 4.5.
Ooh.
You missed the hook. But the 4 number you mentioned is interesting.
You're telling me it's 4.5 everywhere.
It's 4.5 at DraftKings and FanDuel. If you want the 4, you got to go to places like BetMGM and Caesars.
Okay, well, they're reputable spots.
Yeah, well, But you mentioned the number 4. Mike, did you know that the Miami Dolphins have covered the spread in 4 straight games?
I like Miami. I told you, I wrestled with putting them in the playoffs at 5-7. I think they can win. I think they'll win this week.
Well, the problem is this week's the Giants. Last week was the Panthers. The week before was the Jets. They had that one game against Baltimore, and the week before that is Houston. So they're piling up these successful wins and covering the spread. against some pretty lousy teams. So it's a pretty convenient spot in the schedule for him.
All right. What do we got next here? It's Indianapolis and Houston. I saw this one. It's 10 or 10.5, I guess. Indianapolis is favored. You know, I was talking to someone about this week. They said, I listen to this segment all the time. He's like, man, you're always really close to these numbers. And he's like, what I like is that you admit when you see them. I said, well, I enjoy playing the game of trying to guess. I'm not going to cheat. So when I see the line, I mean, I'm not getting any satisfaction out of telling you that, so I saw this one. It's 10.5. I kind of like the Colts here on the road, 10.5. I think that Texans team is falling apart. They're starting to leak oil late in the year. They lost last week to the Jets, for God's sakes. And I think the Colts are just going to ram it down their throats all week. I think Jonathan Taylor, monster game, and that sets up a big game for Carson Wentz too. So I'll go Colts 10.5, and I like the Colts in this game.
Well, the line is currently 10 at FanDuel, 9.5 at DraftKings.
Ooh, dropped.
Yeah, there's no 10.5.
Great, DraftKings 9.5. I like that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting movement because when you actually look at the public money is heavy Colts. This is the most money being bet on any team on the spread right now because they open at 7 for the Colts. And now it's either 9.5 or 10. 88% are going Indianapolis.
Very interesting. I don't like being on the public side there, but I like the Colts at 9.5. That number at DraftKings. All right, Washington football team is taking on Vegas, and Vegas is coming off of a Thanksgiving Day win. Washington football team obviously has played very well recently. Big game for Washington. They need a win to at least keep pace with Dallas and or gain ground depending on what happens tonight. But I got to imagine Vegas is a home favorite in this game. I'm going to go Vegas is favored by 3 over Washington. I got to tell you, though, I think I like Washington here.
To quote Lee Corso, close. 2.5 is the line at most books.
Well, that 2.5, and that 2.5 tells you that the line maker's thinking what I think is. I kind of like Washington here.
Well, it's very interesting because, I talk about this on Game Night a lot. You got to look at the price on the line as well. So at DraftKings, the price is minus 110 for the Raiders. But if you go to another book, like let's say BetMGM, it's minus 125. So the books have different prices on the same line number.
That's a valid point there. Give me Washington, though. I like Washington, sadly. I think Washington's starting to get their groove. Stella got their groove. Washington's got their groove right now.
They found their defense, that's for sure.
Yeah, they did. That's what I was a little concerned. Although no Chase Young for the rest of the year, and they have found that's how good their defense was last year. And they're doing it now without Chase Young. All right, let me go to Jacksonville and the Rams. It's a stinker. Jacksonville's on the road. They got to travel from Jacksonville to L.A. I mean, they're going to get the doors blown off them this week. And probably good value for the Rams here because the Rams haven't really – give me the Rams by 9.
Rams are currently 12.5 at DraftKings, 13 at FanDuel.
That's a lot.
Yeah, this is a very, very large number. It's actually a larger number than I expected.
I still like the Rams, though. I think the Rams blow their doors off.
You think this is a get-right game for the Rams?
Yeah, and I don't like the way the Rams have played recently. What's going on with OBJ? He's got some hip problems or something?
Oh, he's got a bad back. Apparently, he has a contusion, like a bruise in his back.
Uh-huh.
It's weird. You know what? I look at the Rams. They're almost like a circus.
This is the kind of game, though, that Stafford, that stat that he's, 9-70 against teams with winning records.
Right.
This is the kind of game where he says, hey, look at me. He bullies the bad teams around.
Yeah.
So this would qualify. Jacksonville stinks. Baltimore and Pittsburgh, that's the game we'll have after the Eagles and Jets on 97.3 ESPN. Baltimore's got to be favored. They're 8-3. Pittsburgh 5-1. Man, Pittsburgh's offense is dog meat. They're terrible. But Baltimore's got a lot of injury problems. I like Baltimore's favored. I would imagine anyway. I don't know that to be accurate, but I'm going to say Baltimore is favored on the road in a very big rivalry game, 3.5.
Baltimore is currently sitting at 4 or 4.5.
I'm right there, man.
Yeah, you're right there. You're right. You're right church, wrong pew.
I don't know who I like in that one. I tend to think that, Pittsburgh got their ass kicked last week.
Well, here's the thing. The game's in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Historically, in this rivalry, the team that's home wins those games usually.
This Pittsburgh team's not the same, though. Historically, Pittsburgh beats Cincinnati every time. That's just a given. And they got swept by them this year, including 41-10 last week.
That's true. That is true.
All right, San Francisco and Seattle. Seattle signed Adrian Peterson this week. What the hell for?
I have no idea.
3-8, and they signed Adrian Peterson. Are you kidding me?
I remember the other day when you turned to me, it's like, hey, guess what? Adrian Peterson signed with the Seahawks. I was like, why? That was my first reaction.
San Francisco needs this game. They're the 6th seed right now. A win furthers them into 6th. A loss puts them right back in the pack with everybody. I got to imagine, and Seattle's at home in this game. The 12th man has turned into a flat tire all of a sudden. I'm going San Francisco, a road doggy dog here, and I think it's pretty significant. I'm going to go San Francisco by 5.
San Francisco is currently 3.5 at DraftKings, 3 at FanDuel.
3 at FanDuel. I like San Francisco in the game. The whole home thing for Seattle has kind of fizzled out this year. They have been dreadful at home this year.
You just can't trust Seattle anymore. Seattle is just going into the tank.
Their defense is abysmal.
Their offense is abysmal too.
That too, yes. But their defense is so bad. All right. Sunday Night Football. Listen to it live on 97.3 ESPN. Denver and Kansas City. Now, this game got flexed into this spot. And you might say, why the hell would they flex this? Well, when I told you the rest of the schedule, that's why. The schedule stinks this week. Kansas City's got to be favored. They're at home. Denver needs this game to stay in the mix. Kansas City, obviously they need the game too. It's not like they're running away with this division. They're only a game up. Give me Kansas City by 7.5 at home against Denver, AFC West.
You got the hook right, but you got the other number wrong. It's 9.5 across the board for the Kansas City Chiefs.
I kind of like Denver there. Kansas City hasn't been blowing people out.
No, but you could argue that Kansas City has, found their groove at the right time.
By the way, I'm counting the chairs up. There's a table in front of me of 25. Looks like it's coming.
Wow.
25 seats at that table sitting in front of me right now.
So what's the over-under on what time they get there?
I hope it's after 6. But if you're setting the table up now, I'd imagine it's coming here shortly. Your Monday night game, it's New England and Buffalo. That's your best game of the week. AFC East implications. Buffalo at home. New England leads the division. I would imagine Buffalo's still a favorite here, but not much. Give me Buffalo 3, and I think I like New England in the game.
Well, your friends at DraftKings have the 3. But if you want another number, FanDuel and Caesars have 2.5.
Yeah, 3 is the number there. They're just saying, hey, this game's straight up.
Now, here's the thing. 72% of the money is going New England.
Makes sense. Not a great schedule this week, Josh. My 5 this week would be New England, Buffalo.
And that's Monday night. So you're saying a Monday night game is in your 5.
Yep. And the Thursday night, Dallas, New Orleans. How many times is the Thursday night game in the 5? Never.
Like once a year.
And the only reason it is because of the implications. It's not because I think it's a great matchup.
Right. It's not like we mentioned earlier. It's not Packers, Cardinals from earlier this year.
No, Washington football, Vegas. Same reason. Because Washington football is involved in implications.
Right.
Chargers, Cincinnati.
I'm with you on that one. That game is very intriguing.
There's not the rest of them stink. I guess the last one would be Baltimore, Pittsburgh, just because of the rivalry.
Yeah, and it's usually a good game. It's a bit of a rock fight at times, but it's always fun.
Yeah, the schedule this year, this week is terrible. All right, who are you rooting for this week? Here you go. You are rooting for, I don't know, who are you rooting for, Dallas or New Orleans?
I mean, my theory is you actually should root for Dallas because if New Orleans loses, it kicks them back and it's easier for you to get the 7 seed.
Yeah, but I don't believe in New Orleans. So I'm rooting for New Orleans to beat Dallas, bring Dallas back to the pack, and get yourself a second avenue to try to get to the playoffs.
All right.
So I'm rooting for New Orleans. You're rooting for Tampa Bay to beat Atlanta.
Makes sense. Yep.
You're rooting for Arizona to beat Chicago.
Definitely.
Not a big deal there. Chicago's kind of out of this
That should
thing.
be an easy win.
You're rooting for Detroit over Minnesota.
If Detroit does beat Minnesota, I will laugh and I will enjoy every minute of it.
Well, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. They're 0-10-1, but they have been close.
This is also one of the weakest Minnesota teams of the last several years.
You're rooting for Miami over the Giants. A loss would put the Giants even further out of the wild card mix. You're rooting for Vegas big time this week over the Washington football team. You know, I really feel like I'm starting to get the Washington football team in my vernacular, and they're going to go and change it on us.
Of course they are. That's how it always works.
You know, you kept slipping and saying the Redskins. I finally feel like I've gotten past that, and now they're going to go and change it.
Hey, man, you still can hang on to the fact that you know that the Raiders are in Vegas and the Chargers are in Los Angeles.
You're rooting for Jacksonville, but that's minimal. That's a minimal one. That's just, hey, if the Rams lose, it brings them, another game back in the wild card mix. But that's, you're rooting for Seattle over San Francisco, and that's who you're rooting for this week. Now, your big ones are Seattle. You're rooting for Seattle over San Francisco. You're rooting for Vegas over Washington, and you're rooting for Detroit over Minnesota. They're your big 3 games right there. Right?
There you go.
That's what you got this weekend. So that's a look at everything there. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. The free mobile app. First look at the NFL schedule. And that's brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt, 6211 Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. So there's my 5 favorite. It's a terrible schedule this week. But there are a lot of playoff implicators, especially on the NFC side of things, as we just kind of mapped out for you there. Eagles and Jets this weekend. A lot of NFL. We'll get Rob Monty's thoughts on the game tonight. We'll get Rob Monty's thoughts on the Eagles and Jets. And we've also got plenty of coverage over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Phillies offseason. And how about the Flyers? Lost again.
7 straight.
7 straight losses.
Horrible.
It's funny because, ESPN's got the hockey now. So they have that hockey show called The Point. And I couldn't hear what they were saying, but they were talking about the Flyers for a good 5 minutes this afternoon with Emily Kaplan and Butchergrass and Tortorella. And I've seen people say that the Flyers need to get rid of Alain Vigneault and bring in Tortorella. Jeez. He would be a Philadelphia. He would just.
He'd be a legend.
That would be just great conversation to have John Tortorella be the coach of the Flyers. Well, a lot of people like Vigneault, a lot of people talk about like the third year for him is always the one that he just kind of can't, doesn't make a lot of adjustments. The power play is a disaster. And you're seeing that really play out here. All right, Monty next from the Associated Press joins me live on the Sports Bash. All right, we enter week 13 of the NFL tonight. Storylines all over the place. Rob Motti from the Associated Press, a good storyteller in his own right, set to join me right now as Dallas plays New Orleans tonight. Rob, your take on where Dallas is and who they are.
Well, first off, Mike, I got to say the rest of the NFC East, as much as they hate to do it, Washington, the Giants, and the Eagles ought to be rooting for Dallas tonight because I don't think anybody's got a chance to catch the Cowboys despite their struggles. And the Saints are 5-6 and right there in the mix for the wild card. So if any of the other teams in the NFC or Washington's right there in that wild card spot have aspirations to reach the playoffs, you better put on your Cowboys gear if you have it hidden from like maybe when you were a kid or whatever and go, how about them Cowboys and root for Dallas. I think the Cowboys have been a little bit somewhat like exposed in some areas, but they're still the class of the NFC East. And if they're healthy going into the playoffs, I think they're going to be a tough team. And they have an offense when they have their guys. And part of the issues lately, though, also have been not having some of the offensive weapons that Dak Prescott has. Cooper and CeeDee Lamb have been out, and that's going to hurt them. He needs all those weapons at his disposal for them to be able to operate at full go. And I think if they have those guys, they'll be a tough team in the playoffs. But some of their defensive issues have risen. Man, I still love Micah Parsons, and I think he's got a real shot to be a defensive rookie of the year. He's certainly probably the leading contender for that.
Now, that's interesting because I just said I think I'm going to root for New Orleans tonight. My reasoning is this, Rob. Not because I think you have a really good shot to win the East, but it keeps that avenue open, and I just don't believe that New Orleans has enough. So I don't take them as a serious wild card contender. But if I can bring Dallas back to the pack, I have a second avenue potential.
I can agree with that logic in that the Saints, to me, also don't look like a team, especially now. They're turning over to Taysom Hill, and they're 5-6. They'd have to climb the Vikings and the Falcons. You still got the Panthers and the Eagles both at 5-7. However, I just don't see any. I don't care if Dallas would lose this game.
Keep in mind, Rob, Dallas and Washington play twice.
Yeah, and best you can – I think the best they can do is split. Now, from Washington's perspective –
if Washington and Dallas split and Philly makes it to the end, that split would pull them a game back if Philly does their job. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, they might lose to Washington twice and it's moot.
They might lose to the Jets, Mike. They might lose to the Jets.
Here we go. Now, what is the Jets' path to? What is something the Jets do that worries you then?
Not much, really, to be honest with you. But nothing that the Eagles did last week gives me confidence anymore going into a game that that's an automatic win. From the Eagles' perspective, with Jalen Hurts,
there are no automatic wins in this league. Period. Point blank.
Yeah, and for that reason, and given the way they played last week against the Giants, and with Jalen being hobbled, I think you got to worry a little bit about facing the Jets. You're going back on the road. It's 2 weeks in a row. You're back there against a team who's never beat you. And Robert Saleh's got to look at that as like, hey, man, that's history. That's in the past. This is a new team. I'm a new coach. It's a new era, new quarterback, all that stuff. And they kind of got that chip that they want to beat the Eagles, and they want to be able to eliminate that 11-0. And there's a lot of familiarity between the two teams. I think Zach Wilson, because he hasn't played up until last week, he had missed the 3 or 4 games. It puts the Eagles in a tougher spot because that's less film they have on them. And I'm not afraid of Zach Wilson at this point right now in his career, but I just feel like the Eagles aren't a good enough football team to where you can say automatically they beat the Jets. So I'm not looking at the Cowboys at all. I don't think they have a shot. I think you make the best case in the NFC for any team that want to root against Dallas tonight would be Washington with the 2 games coming up against them. The fact that they're a little bit closer to them right now, and they can say that. And if I'm Washington, maybe, yeah, sure, you think that way, but I also don't believe they're good enough.
Right now, where do you see Washington? Because people forget, I think, Rob, is this team won the division last year.
Yeah.
I know it was with a losing record, but they did give the Buccaneers the best challenge in the playoffs last year. They've got this really good defense that was terrible for a couple of a handful of weeks, and they're starting to play good defense. And Rob, watching them recently, they've kind of taken the page from the Eagles playbook is, hey, we're going to try to run the football here and minimize our opportunities to make mistakes.
And they also made the Bucs look bad a couple of weeks ago too, Mike. Not only did they play them tough last year in the playoffs, but beat them this season. And when you look at their schedule, the Raiders on the road this Sunday, that should be a game where Vegas should win, but they're so inconsistent that I don't know. I'm not gonna say they should win that game, but after that, for Washington, it's right there for them. Cowboys, Eagles, Giants. If they somehow, I think 3-2 is the best they're going to do, but if they somehow go 4-1 in there, and those two wins, depending on those two wins, they have that formula where if you can run the football a little bit, their defense has come on. Surprisingly, you lose Chase Young, and their defense is still finding a way right now to play well. If their defense continues, they're going to be a tough team, but you still, you don't know what to expect from Taylor Heineke week in and week out. He could be the guy who played extremely well against the Bucs, or he could be a guy who struggled as he did at times during the season.
Rob Motti from the Associated Press, their NFL writer. Obviously, the Eagles, you mentioned, the Jets, they're playing here. They got to go back to the Meadowlands. The whole thing with Hurts, it looks like he's going to play, obviously.
Yeah.
And you wonder if he's going to be limited at all in this game. And how, they asked Sirianni 6 ways to Sunday if you got to change the game plan. Is he going to be limited? Does he give you the best chance to win if he's not 100%? Like, this is going to be the fact that Sirianni hasn't come right out and said, look, Jalen's our starter. He's healthy enough to play. He's going.
Yeah, and you know what? He can do that tomorrow, right? Friday's an opportunity for him. The last time he speaks to the media, and I think he might say that on Friday. All right, Jalen's a go. Now he could also say for competitive advantage, competitive reasoning, you don't want to let the Jets know. Let them prepare a little bit for Gardner Minshew. Anytime that they have to put in to prepare for Gardner Minshew is going to be beneficial for the Eagles. I think Jalen is going to go, and I know Jalen says it's not going to be a problem. It's not going to affect him. None of that stuff. If you got an ankle injury and mobility is his thing, mobility is his strength, running around, eluding tacklers, escaping the pocket, running with the football, no doubt. And you mentioned this the other day. He didn't run at all in the second half of that game. If Jalen Hurts is going to be limited to being a pocket passer, then you're going to be in trouble, because even Nick Sirianni on Monday said, when we drop back to pass, we're not a very good football team and we don't do it. So if that's what Jalen Hurts has to be on Sunday against the Jets, that's another avenue to where the New York Jets can get their first ever victory against the Eagles. And that makes it a legitimate question, Mike. Are they best served with Jalen Hurts pocket passer only going against the Jets, or a guy like Minshew who could run around? Like, listen, I know earlier in the season I wanted to see Minshew just for one game so I could see how the offense operates. That was before Nick Sirianni committed to the run, and once he committed to the run, now at this point I don't want to see Gardner Minshew. I'd rather actually see Jalen Hurts as a pure pocket passer, just so I know what he can do.
All right, here's the question then, Rob. What is the Eagles' mindset as an organization? Do they want to say, we're in this playoff mix and we want to go for it, therefore we need to give our organization the best chance to win, or we need to placate to the locker room and we want to evaluate our guy here? Where are they?
That's a great question. I'll tell you where they should be. If I'm the Eagles organization, I want to see what Jalen Hurts can do banged up. because as a football player, as a quarterback in the NFL, as QB1, as a franchise guy, if that's what they're trying to still evaluate him on, and we should think that they still are, you're going to have to play injured. You're going to have to play with a banged up thumb. You're going to have to play with a bum knee. You're going to have to play with a bum ankle, a shoulder. Look at what Baker Mayfield is trying to do with Cleveland unsuccessfully. We saw Brady come in against the Eagles and play with a bad thumb. We see guys go in and week out and play hurt and play injured. I think it's more beneficial for the Eagles long-term to know what a Jalen Hurts can do playing through some aches and pains and bumps and bruises versus Gardner Minshew is going to be a career backup. I don't think anybody other than maybe Gardner and his parents think he's a starter in the NFL, and maybe his agent. So I don't care what the Eagles feel about trying to be. Hey, you got a quarterback in Jalen Hurts. You're still trying to evaluate him. Let's go out there and give him every opportunity to do that against the Jets, even if he's at 75%.
All right, Rob Motti from the Associated Press, the Eagles and Jets this weekend. That, of course, is the local interest. You got Washington and Vegas. You got Dallas tonight. So there's and the Giants play Miami. So you've got all four teams in play. I do want to get your thoughts. You're a guy who covers baseball. I think you have a Hall of Fame vote, correct?
Yes, I do. Yes, sir.
A Hall of Fame voter. What do you think about the whole lockout situation? Is this a damaging situation, or because it's the off season, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind? I think there's a lot of tangled web mess here that is not really being discussed.
I think what's happened with baseball, and it continues to happen, is they don't do themselves any favors, Mike. And we see this with some of the different rule changes that they've tried to implement, some of the different things that they've done along the way, and even a revelation this week that they actually used two different baseballs without letting anybody know during the season last year, which seemed odd to me and wrong to be able to do that. That said, it does help their case in that it's the off season. It's not the regular season. The season's not, at this point, we're not in January yet. We're not in February yet. The season's not in jeopardy at this point. But they're not helping themselves out. And this is a sport that I think we've seen a lot of younger fans not tune into, and a lot of younger fans. And you know what? I say that, and then I hear from all the younger fans who say, what are you talking about? I'm a diehard. I love baseball. That's great. Well, so do I. That's who I am. I'm a baseball lifer, so I don't care what they do. I'm going to watch baseball. I'm going to tune in. I'm going to care about the sport. However, more people, I think, see this and they're going to view it as a negative. And there's no other way. It's not a positive. It's not a good thing when you lock your players out. And I think it's silly, Mike, what they've done. Look at the team websites when you're wiping the players on the 40-man roster's faces off. Like, how silly is that? It's almost juvenile to me.
Yep. Well, I think the one thing that is, the players' side of thing, the agents are saying, look, you guys have gone younger. You're using younger players. You don't want to pay the younger guys. So we want these younger guys to make money before, one of the things is we don't have to pay these young guys. So it's almost like we're getting you at a discounted rate for all this time. And now the agents are saying, we want our younger players paid more than what they're getting faster. You go to arbitration, you got all. Yeah. I think that's going to be a big problem. And keep in mind, Rob, all these regional sports networks, which now baseball is, they're all hemorrhaging money. Like, they're not doing well. These regional sports networks are in some trouble.
Yeah, and the point that the agents are trying to make by getting their younger players paid is understandable from that standpoint. I do think when you look at the issues between the MLBPA and MLB, those issues are real, and they could lead to a prolonged lockout. Because I was reading them last night, and I was running down the issues, and I was looking at it, and I saw both sides' perspective. So when, as an outside viewer, you see, all right, they make a good point. They make a good point. Well, then who's going to budge? Who's going to give? If one side was completely crazy with their demands, then you could say, all right, they're going to have to move off of that. But if they each make salient point, now it's going to be where they're going to both dig in, and we can get to a longer, protracted lockout. I saw the expanded playoffs and the DH. Those are things that I would like to see for sure. But some of those other, the arbitration, the players hitting an age and getting to free agency as opposed to years and time of service, that's going to be a fight.
Don't you think the expanded playoffs, though, is bad for the players?
For the players?
Well, the way, like, you have a team that's saying, hey, we can make the playoffs with 83 wins. Why do I need to spend money to improve my team? Because now an 82-win team can get into the playoffs, so I don't really need to spend money to try to improve my team all that much because less wins, I can still get in now. It's like an NBA team.
The other side of that, though, Mike, is the 78-win team who says, all right, now I only need 5 more wins. So rather than tanking, I can get in the playoffs and I'm going to go out there. So there's a little bit of both on that one. And this is going to be interesting to see how it plays out and how deep it goes. Because I'm a guy who loves spring training. And now being close to it, right? Now I'm here. I'm in Florida. It's not taking a trip for a month. It's taking a 20-minute, 30-minute ride, depending on where I want to go. And I'm right there for spring training. And you turn that corner in the northeastern cities. Like you're up in Philly, you're up in New York, you're up in Boston. Once you get through Christmas and you get through New Year's, what are you looking forward to? You're looking forward to spring training. And now you might lose that. And that's not good.
Oh, listen, I thought about that the other day. I mean, I've been going to spring training for almost 20 years in a row now, and I'm thinking, are there even going to be games down there this year? Something to think about. The baseball lockout is underway, so no hot stove, no baseball, possibly, I don't know, March, April. We might not see opening day start on time. It could be a big-time mess. Rob Motti, the Associated Press, Faith on the Field airs Saturday mornings at 9 and Sundays at 6:30 here on 97.3 ESPN. What do you got going on this week, Rob?
RG3, Robert Griffin III, he's on this week, and it's a fascinating conversation. Had to condense it for the show. If you want to listen to the whole thing, just go to faithonthefieldShow.com. But he suggested Tim Tebow should have been hired by Florida. They got a lot of attention. He's got some thoughts on Tua. He's got some thoughts on Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, this quarterback crop coming out right now. The Heisman Trophy. He talks about a lot of different issues. He's a great guy, good talker, and he still wants to play in the NFL. So
wow, he's got a big book coming out too. That's supposed to be pretty interesting. All right, Rob Motti's back on Tuesday. We'll look back at Week 13 in the NFL, Eagles and Jets. Thanks, Rob.
You got it, Mike. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
And Rob Motti's brought to you by Resorts Casino Hotel in Atlantic City. I'm Mike Gill. We'll wrap up the Thursday show. Don't forget, game night is coming up next. Andy McNamara joins Josh tonight at 6:20 here on 97.3 ESPN. A Sports Bash Thursday night edition is about to be in the books. We'll close it out coming up next here on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. All right, wrapping up a Thursday show. Mike Gill with you here at Chickies and Pete's. Want to thank all the people here at Chickies. By the way, that table at 25 is not seated yet, so it looks like I'm going to get out of here. Also, Johan Camargo signed with the Phillies yesterday, just to throw that. He's like a souped-up version of Ronald Torreyes.
He's a solid, versatile guy.
Yeah, he plays third, second, short, left, center, first. I think he's played a little first.
Every team needs that guy, sure.
Yeah, I'm just saying he's a souped-up version of Torreyes. Torreyes was about my size. I mean, a little thinner than me, but just very short. Very good glove Torreyes had some key hits last year at times, but
he did.
Camargo was pretty good a couple of years ago. I think he played exclusively at AAA last year, so the Braves didn't even use him, but he was pretty good like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, actually. Time moves by really fast. Aaron Rodgers, 38 years old today. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Aaron Rodgers. Did you see that there's a new college bowl?
Nope.
They had another college bowl game. It's going to be in Texas. It's going to be a matchup of Group 5 teams.
Just what they need. Another bowl and Group of 5 teams to play in those bowls.
So now Hawaii can play Memphis in the Hawaii Bowl.
Jeez. I'm going to the Military Bowl in December 27th, Military Bowl. I'll be heading there. ECU against somebody. I don't know who yet. All right, that's the show. Josh has game night up next, and the game tonight is Cowboys and Saints. I like the Saints tonight. 6.5. Give me the Saints. Saints. Take the Saints, Jose. Saints.